Let's look at the moves. Baker, what was that?
This is not FPL. This is a major.
Yo, what up? Welcome to the next episode number 2.
3.
Hot threes? Fuck,
3.
I'm off. 3.
3, yeah.
Yeah, of Hotkeys Esports. I am one of your hosts, Antonio, also known as Prater, and next to me is my other host, please.
Nico Dobon.
Nico Dobon sounds interesting. It sounds like a James Bond villain.
That's what my DM calls me.
Nico
He
Dobon.
says my first name and then my screen name.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's great. He's a great Southern man. Shout out to Steak.
But yeah, no, we are here today with some more hot, fun topics. We want to go over Deadlock. We're going to go over more worlds as world progresses. Swiss is finally over. The longest esports tournament in the world is about halfway there, maybe a little more. Never ends.
We're working on it. Chipping away at worlds.
We'll mention it more in the worlds thing. I do, and I don't know what they do to fix it, but like I do think worlds is too long.
I think you cut down Swiss Day. I think you just start kicking.
Well, they're eliminating play-ins, which is I think helps a lot because it literally takes like a whole week off of the tournament. But like, yeah, it's crazy how long it is.
Rounds of Swiss. Like if you go 0-1 or like 0-2, by the time you're 0-2, get out of there. Like there's no reason to keep playing.
Yeah, we'll save for that. But yeah, we're gonna keep talking about worlds. We've got some stuff happening in the moment right now. I believe IEM Rio, ECT is happening.
There's a game happening for PGL Wallachia Season 2 right now.
Yeah,
Na'Vi versus Tundra.
So we're back in the heat of some of it for sure. But I think to start things off,
sports podcast on the planet for no reason. All right.
Yeah, no. If we don't have 17 tabs open at any given time, we have a problem.
I'm on number 2 right now, so we're cooking.
It brings up one of my favorite moments from what event was that? That wasn't Combo Breaker. I believe that was Frosty. Maybe Frosty. Yeah, like Frosty Faustings of this year, I think, where I was at Frosty Faustings. We were there for day 1. That one's kind of interesting because it's like a 2-day event. And I think we went back to my homie's apartment who lives there early on Saturday. And we created like the craziest multi-screen experience of all time where we had on his television, we had Strive Top 8, as well as 2 laptops with 2 different top 8s for other games going on at Frosty. We busted a Switch out so we could watch, I believe it was LCQ for Apex. And we had another monitor. I don't even remember what it was. Another screen showing an LCS match that was going on at the same time. So yeah, you got to stay locked in. You gotta make sure you're stimulated.
To our dedication to esports and the scene. Let this be a testament.
Yeah, no, it was wild. It was on an Instagram story somewhere. But yeah, it was good. But before I think the main stuff, obviously we're gonna talk worlds and we're gonna talk a little Deadlock. But before that, I wanted to talk a little bit about Capcom Pro Tour, which ECT is a qualifying event going on for right now. The reason I want to talk about it, and this is like a topic that's come up a few times, but legend, GOAT, God, Daigo Umehara, basically said on his stream that got put out on a translated clip, as usual from his streams. He had a thing, he talked about the format a little bit, which prompted one of my favorite North American players and like minds in the scene, Brian F., to basically issue kind of not like a somewhat of a response, but not really a response, just another excuse for him to talk about the Capcom Pro Tour format, which he's been very vocal about for about 2 years, ever since the post-COVID changes. And I think it's worth talking about because the Capcom Pro Tour format, to me, is like kind of questionable and not great. But to summarize the Daigo point, or what he was talking about with Capcom Pro Tour, Daigo was talking about how there isn't really, basically his main point is a point that has been echoed a lot, where the current Capcom Pro Tour setup, for those who don't know, the way it works is you have 8 events, like offline tournaments, that if you win them, get you a guaranteed spot in Capcom Cup. This year it was Evo, Cream City Convergence, Ultimate Fighting Arena, East Coast Throwdown, happening right now. And then there was a super premiere in Singapore and a super premiere in Japan, that are, I don't think they're named yet, but basically there are 2 regional events over there that
So the regional
will,
events that'll qualify you for
yeah,
the main like tournament circuit.
right, and they're offline tournaments that qualify you for Capcom Cup, like quite literally, like the final event. Blink Respawn and Kings of the World are the other 2. And like I said, so you have 8 events. Capcom has about, I think, Pro Tour has 46 slots available. So you might be saying, okay, you named 8 offline events. How the fuck do the other 38 people qualify in? That's a good question. So, Capcom Pro Tour has, for Capcom Cup, the other 36 spots, or 38 spots, all go to World Warrior events. So what the World Warrior is are basically region locked, online only tournaments. You've got 2 of them in Japan, 2 of them in East Asia, 2 of them in Asia, 1 in South Korea. They're scattered all over the place. And I'm talking down to literally America has like a Central America East and a Central America West bracket, and Mexico. These are all, like I said, literally region locked. Like once you are outside of the scope of that World Warrior event, you can't compete. So it's like U.S. Midwest has 2, U.S. Canada East has 2, U.S.
I think
Canada
the
West has
breakdown
2.
of how they decided Central America East and West,
I
because
yeah,
I don't think there's enough space between the East and West of Central America to warrant that.
couldn't tell you, especially when you have like the Middle East has 2 slots, Europe North and East has 2 slots, Germany gets its own spot from World Warrior. And I think some of them cross pollinate a little bit, which is interesting, I guess.
Yeah.
But I would imagine, I don't know the exact regional breakdowns. The more important point is, as you can see, 8 slots are available for offline tournaments. 8. 38 are available for these region-locked online events. If you are a Japanese player, right? Or, fuck it, let's extend it beyond that. Let's say anyone from Asia, period. If you're an Asia region player, European players almost. Why the fuck would you want to travel to the, because what? Well, let's see, 1, 2, 3. 3 of the 8 events. I don't know where Blink Respawn or King of the World is. But let's assume those aren't in the US.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. 3 of the 8 spots are in the US for offline events. Why the fuck would you want to travel to one of these events? Because like I said, if you don't win, you get jack shit. There's no point system. Nothing like that.
So
Those events are show up, win the event to qualify, or get nothing. So, Daigo was saying,
incentive.
Yeah, Daigo was basically saying, yeah, of course, Eastern, like Japanese players specifically, he was talking about, don't travel to offline events as much because there's very little incentive. It's very expensive for them. Not all of them have the support of like a sponsor. Even he was saying, even some of the ones that do, their sponsor isn't going to pay for them to go to these events a lot of the time. There's only a select few players that he knows of, himself being one of them, because if you look, Daigo actually has been everywhere. He's been all over the world for this shit. But he was saying he is one of the few players that actually, he basically picks the tournaments he wants to go to, and his sponsors are like, yeah, sure, whatever. Pay for your travel,
And
pay
a
for
lot
your
of
hotel.
boards don't have a
Get out
fighting
there.
game division as much as they used to, at least. I feel like it
Yeah.
was bigger. Like EG had Jay Wong and a couple other people for a while.
No, I mean,
Nowadays,
100%.
you don't see you see dedicated fighting game orgs. Like there was Panda before that whole fallout happened, and there was a couple others. I know it's bigger in Korea with Tekken, but
I mean, even then, I like JDCR is one of the best Korean Tekken players in the world. He's sponsored by Carmine Corp, like a French org, like but yeah. So what is the? Why would you, as a top Japanese player, do that when instead you can stay home, stream, make money off streaming? Because in case people don't realize this, Street Fighter 6 in Japan right now is huge. It's massive. Like, there's tons of interest in the game, plenty of people, you're getting viewers, ad revenue, stream money. So you can just, instead of going to these premieres that are offline and are, for the record, fucking hard, right? Like, these are hard tournaments.
Grinding against top
yes.
players, just like
Yeah.
yourself and your...
And like I said, outside of getting first, there is zero incentive. Because, like, let's say you do get second. The prize pool probably doesn't, if anything, getting second in a tournament, which is still a monumental task, what does that do? Cover your travel? Like, you're not making money. You probably would have, yeah, like, it covers the money you spent to go there. You got a free trip. Like, that's it. Yeah. You know? You're essentially breaking even. And so instead, as a Japanese player, you can stay home, stream World Warrior, stream your practice for World Warrior, stream your practice for Street Fighter League, and, you know, be fine. Why would you go to these events? There's no reason to. And so Daigo continued this to say, essentially, he thinks that it might be fine because it showed, basically, he was like, if you reset it to the old way, which if people don't know, the pre-COVID CPT had a point system. So, like, let's say you didn't win EVO. You still got points based on placement. And essentially, what would happen is the people who didn't auto-qualify off of tournament wins, because they still had offlines that were guaranteed qualifiers.
Right.
If you didn't, all the other spots got filled by points. So, a leaderboard of points. And except for one, which they always keep, I think, one open for an LCQ, which is fine. I don't think anyone's got a problem with that, right? So outside of that, he was like, if you open that back up, if you return to that system, you would see a lot more Japanese players traveling, but you would also see a lot more of them probably make it into the Pro Tour, and a lot of other regions wouldn't make it. Which I you know, let's be honest with ourselves. Like, let's speak candidly for a second. Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, Japan.
Players live out there.
If we're talking about per capita talent, like we're talking about like talent locked in one place, Japan is probably the highest in the world. You know, small island, large number of really fucking good players. Would they take every spot? Probably not.
Per capita is is huge.
Yeah, no, it's massive. It's absurd. So yes, I don't think it's crazy to say that if we return to a points leaderboard and he said, like, yeah, they probably would travel more, and they probably would, because you don't have to win an event to get something. If you got top 8 at EVO, you got a fuck ton of points for your leaderboard. You know? So, like, yeah, why not fucking go out and compete? But he was saying that he thinks if that was happening, that would be worse for Street Fighter and the rest of the world. Like, it would affect the health of the game if other regions are not seeing representation.
Yeah.
This leads me to Brian's follow-up point. So Brian F. basically talked about it. He has been a vocal critic of the current CPT format for a while. Literally, I think since the post-COVID changes, which is kind of how this happened. And to be fair to Capcom, things have improved a little bit from the initial post-COVID one, because the other post-COVID one, like, was even worse. Like, there were even less offline qualifications and, like, even more online shit. So they brought a couple more onlines in, or offlines in, whatever. Basically, what Brian was saying is he's like, no, I totally disagree. The current format is actually worse for everyone, because people in America, they don't care about, like, seeing more players from smaller regions. They care about top level competition and seeing our players fight international players.
Right.
He's like, when
They're
a
at the same level, if not
Right.
higher, because
Right.
then it improves our region.
Because, like you said, TNS, right? Tampa Never Sleeps. They have weekly tournaments for almost every top fighting game every week, and they are hot tournaments. High levels of competition. You see top players in those games playing them in every week because they're an online weekly that brings out good competition. It's good practice. Dude, nobody gives a shit about. I'm just gonna East Coast Throwdown. I'm using it as an example. I don't know what's gonna happen, right? But let's say East Coast Throwdown is Punk, which I know it's not Punk because I know he's not there because he's already qualified. Let's say it's Punk versus fucking Mena at the end of East Coast Throwdown. Dude, you could see that literally every week at the end of TNS. You see that matchup 2-3 times a month. Who cares? You want to see Punk or Mena fight Tachikawa, fucking, Tokido. That's what you want. Because, this idea, and he was saying, dude, no one watches World Warrior. Because why would you? It's matchups all the World Warriors, because they're region locks, which they have to be because they're online, are just rematches of the weeklies you're watching every week. They're can opener, fights or TNS fights. So you're just basically killing the hype in this area because it's like you can't. No one actively wants to follow the tour because it just feels like the same old every event outside of the offline events, which are now also getting their hype killed because there's no incentive for anyone outside of the area to go to them. And I think this was super highlighted, and he talks about this too, by EWC this year. Because look at DreamHack, right? DreamHack in, I think, Dallas was a EWC, Esports World Cup qualifying spot for Tekken and Street Fighter. That tournament has no historical significance to Street Fighter, right? Obviously, there are a couple that do, and they benefit from it. CEO is a big one that attracts international talent because it's kind of like it has like a reputation in the scene, in the community for Street Fighter as being a big event, so people want to go out and win it. Evo, regardless, you could take Evo off of the Pro Tour, and you'd still have a ton of international talent because it has prestige within the community. It's probably one of the only events that still exists
within itself.
Yeah, exactly. Probably one of the only events that exists in that way of you will want to win Evo because it's Evo. It doesn't really matter how much it pays out or what it qualifies you for. Those are just incentives on top of I won Evo, But you look at like I said, back to DreamHack Dallas. No significance. You know how many fucking international players were there? All of them. Europe, Japan, America, they were all there because it was a fucking Esports World Cup qualifying location. And guess what? Capcom they've been doing this since Street Fighter 6 came out. The whole winner of Capcom Cup gets $1 million. Really fancy. The prize pool split for that tournament is dog shit. It goes $1 million, 500,000, I think 300,000, 10K, and then 5K across top 8. Fucking miserable. And it's all just a marketing stunt to say winner gets $1 million. Brian F. brought up a great point where he was saying, hey, I bet, he's like, how many of you think that Esports World Cup was $1 million tournament for Street Fighter? And I thought it was, to be fair. He showed the prize pool splitting. The winner of Esports World Cup for Street Fighter got $300,000. He was like, the marketing worked because you all thought it was. It wasn't. They threw $1 million at the tournament, but it was in a much more sustainable prize pool thing. He was like, so they got what Capcom Pro Tour is trying to do with the $1 million win thing. They got the marketing. And they didn't even have to pay out $1 million to one person. They paid it out to a more sustainable thing across multiple people.
Yeah.
So if that's working, why the fuck is Capcom doing what they're doing with this shit? you look at, like, Uma is a great example. Uma won the first Street Fighter 6 Capcom Pro Tour. Do you know where Uma is right now? If you had to guess where Uma is in the current competition of the Capcom Pro Tour currently, can you guess? Just give me a wild guess.
Let me say, out of like all the rankings.
Yeah. Like how do you think he's already qualified? Do you think he's trying to qualify? Like what do you think?
I don't think
Has
he's
he been
already
showing up?
qualified. I think maybe to the major events, definitely, right? You know, you gotta be there for the bigger ones, but
Sure.
I don't think he's qualified yet. I think he's still in the process of it because it's like you're not putting yourself out there for, I guess, not smaller events, but maybe the events that'll give you more points because
Yeah.
it's just too much money to
Sure.
travel and go to that and make that work.
So, that's a totally reasonable answer. This was a trick question. Uma has not played since winning Capcom Cup because he took $1 million and fucking left.
Damn.
The previous champion took the $1 million, hasn't played in a Street Fighter Tournament 6 or Street Fighter 6 tournament since. That's
Insane.
what your $1 million
That's
prize pool is
insane.
doing. The dude
Bought a
took
Lambo
the
and
money
dipped.
and fucking retired. Like, what? You want a league with, like, the whole point of these pro tours is they create like should create in my opinion, create a consistent storyline to follow.
Yes.
We can't even talk about a returning champion because he took the $1 million and dipped. Didn't show up, and this kind of based, I'm gonna give it to him. He was invited to a Red Bull Invitational that happened a couple months after winning Capcom Pro Tour.
He was like,
He
"Nah."
didn't go to that because the HoloLive fucking concert was the same weekend. And he went to that instead. Based. But that,
Oh man, I was choking. That's nuts.
he went to HoloFest instead of showing up to the the Red Bull Invitational he was invited to. I need a drink of water. I'm getting lightheaded.
It's nuts. What a guy.
Based, whatever. Like, I, as a HoloLive fan too, sick. You're sick for that one. Congrats. And the whole reason everyone knows this is because he won Pro Tour, like Capcom Cup, and he was wearing a Mio hoodie, who's like a HoloLive VTuber, and that's like his Oshi and shit. And I think he immediately donated like fucking like $1,000 to her stream, like afterwards too.
Immediately.
Yeah.
It's like Capcom Cup.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Wild shit.
Spreading the love.
Yeah, no, based as fuck. Straight up based as fuck. I would too. Thank God. But yeah, literally, like, so what the fuck are we doing? We have 8 offline fucking spots for the cup that are actively, their hype is literally being diminished because international players, why go to them? Because there's no incentive outside of, like, if you have to win. Like, a lot of the time, you'll see fucking people going to these to dodge their World Warrior, like the really stacked regions. And it's just insane because it's like actively like, Japan is fine either way. So if their whole point of doing the system this way is to try to boost like representation outside of Japan and make the game more popular, because like, what are these tours for? Like, if we're being frank, what are these tours for if not to market the game for other people to buy and play, right? That's why this shit exists primarily. It's why Riot has a league. Like, yes, cool. There are people who are passionate about esports. We're passionate about esports and competitive games. And obviously it exists for that. But these tours exist mainly. Their first point when you are like Riot Games, like not the esports division, like Riot Games, or you are just Capcom, they exist to market your game and make more people buy it and play it.
Because like when you see fighting games played at the highest level, you see a bunch of cool shit being done.
Right.
And then you're like, that character looks sick. I want to do that sick shit.
Yes.
So you go out, you buy the game, you learn the character, and that's part of why it exists.
Exactly. So if we can all agree to the conceit that like this is a marketing tool first, Capcom Cup, you are literally hurting the whole point. Because if you're like, oh well, we need other regions to be represented so that they will want to play the game, the people in America, like the U.S., North America, we don't give a shit because it's just like our World Warriors, our matchups we see every week, so no one's fucking watching it. Other regions aren't fucking watching it because it's probably the same thing over there. World Warrior, you can look at the numbers, it doesn't get views. Like, people don't care about World Warrior events. They're just kind of these online events that are repeats of what you already see. And like, if you're doing it because you're like, oh, we don't want Japan to dominate the scene, like if they get international play, Japan's fine. They don't need to in order to maintain viewers. Like I said, that the game is hot there. It's super fucking hot. Like, they've done it's doing completely fine on its own. All you're doing by doing this is actively hurting viewership for the game in other places that you're trying to boost it in. It just doesn't make sense. Like,
shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, and for nothing, for no gain. And yeah, I don't know. Like, that's just my thing. Is it's just like, bro, make this shit mean something next year. Like, make these offline events matter. Get rid of like these fucking 47. Obviously, that's exaggeration, but like these fucking 40, World Warrior slots for these tournaments that don't care about. Cut that shit in half. Because like, whatever. Let's say you want to keep it around. Cut that shit in half. Like literally, like just cut it the fucking half and make all of those slots that you cut like leaderboard slots. If like you're really dedicated to keeping World Warrior around, which like I think in a perfect world you cut it entirely, and maybe Brian F brought this up. I don't know if I'm totally sold on this, but I see his point, and it's a hard point to argue against. Because if you don't know the Pro Tour format right now, Pro Tour now, like literally Capcom Cup, right, is like an almost a week-long event. Speaking of like long events that probably shouldn't be as long as they are, because they do 8 groups. So you have to go through 8 rounds of group stage. Then you have to break for like 2 days or like a day or 2 days so that they can do the World Cup for Street Fighter League, which like Street Fighter League's kind of cool. I'm into it. But the fact that it's like happening in the middle of fucking Capcom Cup, so you have to take a 2-day break to finish that up so that they can then cut back to the
That
bracket
also feels
stage
kind
of Capcom
performative.
Cup.
Because like
Yeah.
imagine how Overwatch does their competitive, because they changed their circuit now, but previously when they did have like the Overwatch League as it
Yeah.
was, and then they did the World Cup in the middle of Overwatch League, and then
Yeah.
just continue with like their World Championships
Yeah.
between all that.
It's like I said, I like Street Fighter League. I think it's actually like it's something that like I think Capcom is obviously super invested in. That's like not a secret. And I like it. Do I like it more than just a good sustainable Pro Tour and Capcom Cup for singles? No, but I do think it's good enough to deserve its own thing. It's cool to follow the teams week to week, and then it's cool to see the teams, go into an international event where they're fighting other international teams. But yeah, the point is, it's like the Capcom Cup just goes on fucking too long because it ends up being like almost 7 days. And the big part of this isn't even the SFL shit. It's these fucking 8-day, like these almost 3 days worth of group stage matches you got to play, which is essentially, to be fair with those groups, is some groups get hype when it's like you don't know who's going to make it out. But some groups are fucking decided in one round robin, and it feels like you're just playing another round robin for the sake of fucking playing it. Like, everyone knows who's making it out. Nobody cares. The group loses all momentum and hype at that point. So with the group stage format, you're essentially coin flipping on whether these games will be close enough to keep it interesting. So it's like
for their qualifiers, if it wasn't just win the tournament and it was more of like a top 3
points.
scenario, right? And then that way you can do seeding from the tournaments. So they get seeded as they place, and then based on their going into going into Capcom Cup, you have the groups based on that seeding. So sure, you might see one player that's going to stomp like the seed 1 player, but then you
get more of
from another region, and
a
it's
second,
divided up
yeah.
equally that way. So that way it's less of a stomp because now you have more of a variety around them, so it kind of evens out what's hype and what's a stomp.
Or let me propose this, maybe, just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
What if we say fuck groups entirely? You cut the number of qualifying spots in Capcom Cup down to top 32. So you literally cut like what? I believe it's 14 slots. You cut 14 of them completely. You make all I get it. We live in a world with online, so you have to keep online events now as part of your tour, and that's fine. I actually don't even think that's a bad idea. It incentivizes players. It can get you players who have the inability to travel. They can still get these slots, which is fine. So you cut it down to 32. You run a 32-man bracket where everyone starts in winners. And what you do is you make it so that you turn it back into a leaderboard system. So where you keep, like, let's say 8, like it is, 8 offline qualifiers. So where if you win the tournament, you auto-qualify. All of those qualifiers are also worth a large amount of points because they're big tournaments. So it incentivizes more people to come out to them because there's a slot on the line and there's points for a leaderboard. You take 8, so what? You take 8 out of the 32, that leaves you 24 slots. You make, and then let's say you do let's do it like this, right? If you really like these offline things, you make 8 slots offline auto qual. You make 8 online slots auto qual. So if you win any of those 16 tournaments, you are automatically qualified. All of those tournaments are also worth points, but you keep the online ones region locked so people aren't, no bad connections and you're not like farming, points that maybe shouldn't be yours.
Yeah.
You then have 16. You then take out of the 16, you have 16 slots left. You make fucking 15 of those slots all point based. So everyone on the leaderboard, the top 15 in the leaderboard that are not automatically qualified in already, get put into the other 15. You have 1 slot open for LCQ. You now have a Capcom Cup with 32 players that has been kind of fairly distributed on consistency, which that's the thing. That's what like you ideally want, in my opinion, out of these Pro Tours is the most consistent players should make it in. If you are a tour grinder, if you're someone going out to all these events, and even if you're not winning them, but consistently getting top 8, top 4, you should probably be in the end of your event. I don't think that's a crazy statement. Like, and that's the thing is like, so you have 32 people, 31 of them qualify off this. You have 1 LCQ live at the event. That winner of that gets in. 32-man, you get to run a straight 32-man bracket. You do like one day, like let's say you run Capcom Cup on, one weekend, because you have a 32 bracket. You run it to like top 16 day 1. You run Street Fighter League maybe the same day. Saturday, you run it down to top 8. You finish Street Fighter League. Sunday, top 8 Capcom Cup. Boom, you're done.
That's it.
That's
all it really needs to be.
In my head, it just plays out so much better, man. So much better than what we have now. It's crazy. Like, ugh.
The organization of fighting games from their developers has always been kind of nightmarish. You see it with Smash. You see it with Street Fighter.
Yeah, Nintendo would like to pretend that competitive games literally don't exist, but that's like a whole other thing.
While also having active esports leagues for games like Splatoon.
But it's almost like, in my opinion, don't those just feel like they're forced into it? Like, I almost feel like those, like, they don't even want those to exist. It's just like, they're like, oh, the kids care, so like, fuck it,
yeah.
gotta do it. Like, yeah, because it's like, oh my god, it just boggles my mind. It just boggles my mind because it seems so simple. It really does seem so simple, yet here we are. And like I said, the current CPT format we have is better than the one we had, in the year after COVID. So they are improving it. And hey, here's hoping next year they improve it further and, figure it out more. But it's just like what we have now, in my opinion, is like not sustainable. It's just actively killing growth in places outside of Japan. And don't even get me started on the prize pool shit. Like I said, it's in my opinion, it is a fucking joke that, the winner of Capcom Cup is getting $1 million. Cool, great, fine, dandy. Imagine you worked your ass off all year, got 8th in Capcom Cup, which is an achievement in of itself, because you are literally getting 8 out of like 46 of what are in theory supposed to be the best players on the planet.
Yeah.
And like you got $5,000. I don't know.
It's kind of a slap in the face.
Yeah, make it more sustainable.
You
like
worked
straight
that
up
hard the entire season. You grinded all the way up there. You fought your way through all those people, and placing top 8 at a tournament of that caliber, it's insulting to get that amount of money.
Yeah, and to make matters worse, it's not. Once again, it'd be one thing if the money wasn't there. They're giving the first place guy $1 million. The money is there. It's just not distributed properly. Right. Literally, you take hey, you need to get the lion's share for winning, right? Let's say you give the winner $500,000. That is a life-changing amount of money.
Yep.
No one's going to argue that. That is a life-changing amount of money. You now also have $500,000 to distribute to the rest of the player base, and suddenly those other 7 people in that top 8 are also, even though they're not getting $500,000, they're probably also getting a near life-changing, if not life-changing amount of money.
How do you feel about the community crowdfunding prize pools like they used to with Dota?
Dude, so don't even get me started on this shit, because this is something that you could apply, in my opinion, to almost every fucking game that is being like developer like backed, and it would be amazing.
In a world where battle passes have become like the
common
for monetization, right? Like it was a thing with Dota, and it wasn't egregious because it went directly to the prize pool. It was community centric, and it didn't feel as predatory as a lot of them feel now.
And here's the thing, right? I get that it can get a little tough from a developer standpoint, because in theory, you've got to pay people to make the things in that battle pass, right? So now you are paying people to make a thing in a battle pass that you are saying you're getting no money back on, right? Because it's all going to a prize pool.
Right.
Even if you did half, where it's like, hey, we as big devs still need to make money. Like half of the money will go to the prize pool. That's still a ton of money that could go to this shit.
I feel like the way that kind of worked out for Valve and Dota was because all the cosmetics within Dota and subsequently Counter-Strike and I believe TF2 are community made. The community workshop exists to vote on items that you would like to see in the game. And then as a new event or a new chess case, whatever comes up, they will put those in the game because they've been voted on by the community. And then the people that make that get a kickback whenever a case is sold, bought, or opened. So
and the thing that annoys me about this too is in some cases this has been done before. Some people might not know this if you weren't following during Street Fighter V. Capcom did that. They would every year have a Pro Tour pack that usually included costumes for certain characters. Almost always it would be Chun-Li, Cammy, and then usually some other characters. Any money that was used to purchase that pack, that character pack or whatever, those costumes, the CPT costumes, went to the Pro Tour. They did it. It was done in 5, and it was really successful. Why? Because they knew what they were doing by giving the costumes to fucking Cammy and Chun-Li. Because those motherfuckers sold costumes.
Yeah.
And you can, so yes, literally you can do that now. They've done it before. And fucking, Apex, it's the same thing. And they talk about it in Apex where it's like, bro, if you just did something, skins, a box, like a loot box that it's like, this is the ALGS loot box. Or, heaven forbid, a full battle pass where you're like, this is the ALGS battle pass. And any money from that goes to funding your prize pool. It would be fantastic. It seems like a no-brainer. Apparently, I've heard on the wind, which, like, I don't know, this is, like, picked up almost third hand, right? Because it's, like, something else. So I don't know the intricacies of this. There is apparently some legal stuff involved when you do that, and it's sometimes more difficult depending on regions that are involved and like things like that.
Yeah.
But the point is, it has been done before. Like you said, they did it in Dota for years. For years.
It was up until the PGL takeover of TI, I believe.
Right.
It started.
This was the first year, right? If I'm not mistaken, this is literally the first year of TI.
For a little while now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We still have the compendium. Well, we don't have the compendiums anymore. We do have a battle pass, but we had the compendiums in previous years, and that was you still gain compendium points or battle pass points. It's currency separate. You get that from playing games, or you can buy it, and you use that to upgrade your battle pass and get rewards. You get treasures, items, emotes, global effects like kill streaks, like the banners and stuff that come up, sprays, things like that.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of devolved into so this year was interesting. We had the Crown Fall event, which was like a year-long event telling a story. It was Skywrath Mage and Vengeful Spirit. They got Arcanas, and that acted as the cosmetics. And then when TI rolled around, we just got the extra TI related stuff. So like player stickers and some of the predictions, loading screens, things like that. It felt a little underwhelming, and it was a shift from what people were used to and what people wanted. But we kind of got it. It was just delivered differently and with less content. Because before you would get you get 3 treasures, which would have sets and immortals. So you have like 2 sets of treasures.
Yeah.
And then you would get loading screens and emotes and things like that on top of that. And then you would have tiers of those treasures. So as the tournament progressed, you would have the tier 1, and then after it would unlock a tier 2, and they would have new items, and a tier 3 by the end of the tournament that would have new, like, more premium items. And then that carried over. I grinded like the last one, and even smaller tournaments did that too. I remember back in like I think it was like 2016, the DAC, the Dota Asian Championships, had their own compendium.
Really?
Separate from TI, yeah. They had their own. They had the DAC Battle Pass, and that was a whole thing. It followed a similar structure, and it worked, and it was great. But since the PGL takeover, if I'm not mistaken, it's been the monetization and everything about it has kind of gone to the wayside. People are not very happy.
So. Yeah, I mean, I knew that if you look at like the prize pool for this TI, I'd compared, it was not even close. Like it was, it was nowhere near as much as it had been in the past. I think the thing is, in an ideal world, you should do this for every game you possibly can. And the thing that like baffles me about it for now is, like I said, we are seeing entities who have done it in the past just not do it. And like in Dota's case, maybe it's something to do with PGL ownership of the thing or whatever. In Capcom's case, I don't see the point at all because, like I said, they did it in the last game. And they are still in charge of Capcom Cup. Nothing has fucking changed. Mm-hmm. So why? And like, people talk about with Worlds too, with that going on, and like Worlds has like I guess its own like weird kickback system that changes it a little bit with the player skins, where if you win Worlds, the winners of Worlds get to each make a skin for a champion of their choice, as long as that champion they played at least one game of it during the World Championship. And the whole thing with that is, anytime someone buys that skin, that skin,
or whatever.
Well, any of it. Basically, anytime that skin gets bought, those players get a kickback.
That's good.
So like
I noticed.
Yeah.
Recently, they had their Player Day celebration. I think it was like 2 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it'd be really cool to, in a similar way, since we're on the topic right now, to fund Worlds in a way to get the community more involved with Worlds, to put in some community made content. Riot's pretty like tight knit
Yeah.
on what gets into the game.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a reason for that. I can't blame them. There's some egregious things out there about their characters, so trust me, we know how that goes. But
10,000
there's
years
a
of
lot of
game
really
development.
talented artists out there, a lot of very talented voice actors and
Yeah.
musicians that
Yeah.
can make music packs for the game. They can make announcer packs. They can put custom emotes. They do emotes anyways.
Yeah.
They can do
And
championships.
to be fair to
Community
them with the
champion skins would
emote,
be insane.
to be fair to them with the emote shit, I do like they have done esports. Basically, every team competing around the world got to submit and work with artists to make an emote for their team.
I
And
remember the Akali one was a problem.
yeah, which like God, dude, I can't believe they censored that.
It's so bad.
The I forget. Yeah, I don't know why you would censor. Like, I get why you would censor it, but like, come on, man, that is so fucking stupid.
Someone at Riot
Yeah.
Games has a small dick and they felt called out.
The other
Insane.
one, did you see the fishing hook one they censored?
Yes.
That one I
because
get. I
the
kind of
bait king.
yeah. The bait one I kind of get because like yeah, like we all know what that's actually gonna get used for, and you probably can't do that. But the point being, those are totally fine because it's like it's a way to get the org's money back, right? Is like if those emotes get purchased, the orgs associated with them get money directly from it. These are all good ideas and they should be done more, and it's cool to see them happening now. But yeah, it just feels like it's something that should be ironed out before the start of these games. Like, I'm shocked that Capcom didn't have this in the bag ready to go for the first Street Fighter 6 Capcom Cup when you had been doing it for years with Street Fighter 5. Yeah, I don't know. There is something to be said. Obviously, for a lot of these games, the competitive audience, the esports audience, is much smaller than the game at large. But I do think a lot of people in those spaces who give a fuck about comp and give a fuck about the esport are willing to put money forward to support the things they're watching. Like they want to spend money to keep their ecosystems healthy. And we're just kind of like letting that go to waste. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Like
It is a shame, and it's esports as it has grown. Why did I enunciate that so so much? As it's grown has become more corporate, more of a business, and slowly the players and the community have been pushed to the wayside. And there's nothing wrong with that. We want esports to grow, and the direction that is more corporate and more of a business is, I believe,
it has
the
to be
right
sustainable,
direction.
right? Like
Yeah.
that's the thing, and you need these people involved for it to be sustainable. Like I don't think anyone wants to go back to like the
But at the same
pre-franchise
time,
years of LCS where players are getting paid like less than minimum wage and their orgs are
yeah.
fucking taking 95% of their earnings. Like
But even you can see it in traditional sports though, where like in Germany, I don't know how it is in the rest of Europe, but I know that their soccer league, football league, the players own parts of the team, like with ticket purchases
right.
and like merchandise. So when you go to a game, the teams are directly paid and everything by your
Yeah.
tickets, which I'm sure happens, but there's also like a sense of ownership that comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like an actual piece of ownership. I'm not too versed on how it works. I just know it exists, that there is like a community ownership of those teams. I believe it's through the municipalities itself.
Right.
Maybe I'm wrong, but there's a sense of community that happens when you go to those games because people are more directly involved in it. And I feel like esports have been moving farther away from there. Maybe not the FGC as much because the FGC is still very much grassroots. And a few of these upcoming esports, and we'll get into that a little later when we talk about Deadlock, but they're moving away from what made them popular, and that corporatization of it has alienated a lot of their audiences and has turned people off from a lot of their games and a lot of what made them enjoy them in the first place, because the community's been completely removed. and now it's just you're just being spoon-fed all this stuff from the devs and the esports team and everything else instead of being actively involved and feeling like you belong in that space. That was horrible.
It's tough because I think, especially when you talk about stuff like the soccer leagues in Germany or whatever, it's much easier to tie things like that in when you're geolocated, right? I was born in South Florida, therefore I am a Miami Dolphins fan.
Right.
Do I know anything? Like what is my attachment to the Miami Dolphins? Nothing beyond living here, if we're being frank. But that's enough, right? Like I am a Miami Dolphins fan, as a fan of football. Yeah.
Because we're
right.
in NA.
Exactly. We support North American teams, regardless of how we feel about the team when it's North America versus North America. But when it's North America versus the world, you're supporting North America because you live in North America. The problem with esports is it's not geolocated. So to get people in on your team, you have to find something completely different, which before, a lot of the time, that's where the players came in, right? As you would be a fan of the player, which would then turn you into a fan of the team. We talked about this a while back. The way I got into competitive games was through being a fan of fucking Mango in Super Smash Bros. Melee, which converted me into a C9 fan of their League of Legends team. And then I liked the people on their team. I liked Sneaky. I liked Meteos. I liked Jensen.
He posted today.
We know what he does. I don't hey. Wait.
I'm just asking if you've seen it.
Is it the ball gag one or a different one?
It involves that, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I saw a little bit.
I just want to make sure.
My favorite thing was that the C9 official account replied to it. That's based. Shout out to them.
Nice.
No, they literally my two favorite replies to that picture that you're I think speaking of is C9 posted "You're so hot, brother," which is sick. And then Sven Skaren, former Cloud9 jungler, with Sneaky, just commenting on, man, those ropes look uncomfortable, and both are valid.
Yeah, they looked like they were gripped on things that should not be gripped on.
But yeah, so back to the initial point.
Back to the topic at hand.
Yeah, it was the players, and this, we could talk about the turnover in League of Legends and how that affected investment in the players, because and honestly, you can talk about this for getting invested in orgs is harder because before it was your road to the org was the player. Mm-hmm. When you have high turnover, that doesn't exist anymore because it's your favorite player could be on 3-4 different teams across 3 years. And how do you get invested in a team when you're just following the guy team to team? Apex has a big problem with that right now because after every fucking LAN, teams fucking just and they just literally. And granted, that is because in Apex right now, it's a player-controlled game. The orgs actually have very little say in, the players have much more say than the orgs, as to where I think that's less true in something like League of Legends. I think the orgs have a lot of control there, as opposed to the player. Striking that balance is hard, and I think when either one is favored, it creates an issue. Because in Apex, like I said, you have this roster issue where teams can't sustain the same roster. That's not because the teams don't want to. That's because LAN ends and, IGL of, whatever team goes, yeah, fuck these guys. I think I can win without them. Give me 2 new players. What's the org going to say? No? That guy's the IGL. You can't do anything. You just got to do what he says.
I'm making the shots.
Yeah, and that is what causes this stuff. And so, yeah, it's just tough. I think at the end of the day, to not keep beating down the point, it's hard to get people invested in esports orgs because you lack geolocation. All attempts at geolocation have generally failed. Overwatch tried it. It did not go that well.
They had the funding to make it work.
Yeah,
they wanted a fully international league, which was insane.
Yeah,
having teams from NA have to play teams in Korea on LAN would be insanity.
No, you gotta take
an almost weekly basis.
Yeah, it's just it doesn't work out. You need better infrastructure and I still think you need better buy-in because also to me, there's also fell apart where it's like, in theory, right? Like, let's say this works to code.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be a fan of the Miami Mayhem, I think they were. Yeah, Miami Mayhem. Right, Florida Mayhem. Everyone on Florida Mayhem was European because it was a European team that got turned into the Florida Mayhem.
Yeah, it was Misfits originally.
Yeah, it was Misfits. They got converted.
The slot.
Right.
And then I think it was like 2 Korean imports too.
Complete disconnect. Yeah. You've lost me. Classic case, and obviously, like, I'm a C9 fan, right? In this case, so it's like, oh, well, am I a London... Like, there were too many disconnects for me to get into C9 in Overwatch League because C9 became London Spitfire, so it's not NA, and the team was full Korean.
They didn't have import restrictions either.
There was zero. There was zero. So there was zero import restrictions.
It eventually turns to every team being full Korean teams supposed to represent a majority of places in the US and then like 3 international teams.
The London Spitfire being a team of full Koreans by a North American org.
In Europe.
Like I said, yes, the London Spitfire. An NA org, a roster of full Koreans.
It's fucked up and evil, man.
It's all falling apart. Like, your geolocation has completely fallen apart at that point. No one cares. No one cares. Like, what else are you going to say?
Did it decently well. You have leagues that exist per region, and then you build talent with that. You have the import rules, so you can't have that full Korean, so it creates less of a disconnect. And
I think it's arguably, yes, the best example of this kind of thing that you can do in like a team environment where it's like, hey, obviously importing talent's a thing. I don't even think, it makes off season spicy. So like, yes, you need to allow imports. Capping it at 2
in CS, because the way CS developed, having teams of friends that eventually grew up.
It's a very it's an open style game.
You had dynasties of teams, like a Swedish dynasty, you had a French dynasty, you had a Danish dynasty, right? Astralis was an all Danish team. Mm-hmm. Navi was like an all CIS team, like Ukraine, Russia for a while. Vitality's like majority French team. I think they have 2 Israelis on there and someone else from like the UK. Mm-hmm. But while Vitality's on the table right now, they have really good community. I'm looking for the word.
Like
they
support,
have really good community support,
relationship,
support, because they have the V Cafe in Paris. A buddy of mine was just in France, and he showed up, and he's now like a big Vitality fan because he's like, I went there, I hung out. They've got a bunch of cool stuff. I met Zaibu because it was his re-signing party.
So. There are
all in on Vitality now.
Yeah. Well, no, exactly. So that's cool and that's interesting, and there are examples of it working. I think you can see it with stuff like that. You can see it in LEC a little bit, which like this is playing on like a historical rivalry that like you could say is maybe a little toxic to play on, but the whole I don't remember who the other team is, but in LEC you have Carmine Corps, which is historically a French organization.
Yeah.
Who has the gnarliest, nastiest blood beef against another org that exists in LEC that is primarily a Spain org. Like I said, you're playing on like some primal human tribalism there, right? Like, but it works. French fans really like Carmine Corps, even though they haven't had a good season in like a year. That Spain-fronted org that I can't remember the name of, people really, Spanish fucking people really like that org, despite them also probably never making it to Worlds, having never been at Worlds, and not doing super fantastic in the LEC either. But boy, when they play each other, it gets nasty. And, there's something to that. China, in the LPL, specifically for League of Legends, China, all of those teams in the LPL are geolocated within China. RNG has an RNG center, and like they travel to like play games. Like obviously, it's localized, so it's easier because it's just within China. But those teams have home bases that they
So they
play at.
travel to play for
Yes.
their games? Oh, that's sick.
Granted, so I don't know. This was a thing for a while, pre-COVID. I'm assuming it's still happening post-COVID, but I know for a fact, yes, like there are travel games in the LPL that I don't think every org, to be fair, I don't think every single org in the LPL has like a home base, but all of the big ones do.
Like Billy will have one.
Yes.
They're sponsored by big companies like
Right.
Dogen, Billy.
RNG has one because
RNG,
obviously
yeah.
the massive dynasty over there. Like
Edward is a Chinese team, right? Or am I tripping?
which one?
EDG.
Weibo? EDG does, yeah. Edward Gaming.
Weibo.
Weibo. Like I'm sure Edward does. Fucking yeah. So it exists, like that's what I'm saying. Like it works in places. It's just you have to like it needs to be something more centralized, Vitality specifically doing it in a region that is close to home. It creates like a fan experience, a localized experience, and you're seeing that pop up a little bit in like certain places. The problem you run into, I think, in NA specifically, it's a little bit better or easier, I should say, in Europe, right? Because those orgs are kind of scattered around multiple countries. In North America, most of your big orgs are just based in LA.
Yeah, LA or Texas. Like 100 Thieves, I think, is in Texas.
No, dude, their headquarters
he's in
LA.
Yeah,
Nadeshot moved to Texas, but the headquarters for 100 Thieves is in LA.
I remember their campus walkthrough.
Yeah.
And it's like a couple blocks down from like where Riot is too.
That's right. And you're seeing the point is they all centered themselves around it because that was their primary thing, right?
Yeah.
So now Cloud9, based in Los Angeles. Liquid, based in Los Angeles. 100 Thieves, based in Los Angeles. TSM, which do they exist now? Who knows? Based in Los Angeles.
They're an org.
Yeah, they're an org. That's a good way to put it. They're an org
based off pedigree now. Like TSM has management.
They got a good Apex team. But yeah, my point. So, let's say you want to set up a fan experience.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do it. All of them are just going to do it in LA, or they have to put in the extra effort to get a team out or contact a team out in another state.
Right.
It's tough. It's really tough.
Remember for a while, Complexity's Dota team was like based out of a team house in Fort Lauderdale, which was really funny for a bit.
Yeah,
but,
I mean
that's like their Dota team. The org is based somewhere else, so it's like you're not gonna throw a block party in the middle of a Fort Lauderdale suburb,
right?
So for like this Dota team because they qualified for TI, right? Like it's not feasible. And at the time, also esports wasn't big enough to warrant that, especially in Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, because everything is egregiously expensive.
Yeah, I think that's the wrap up. That's really the end of it on my side. It's just like it's fucking tough, man. Geolocating is fucking hard, and it's difficult to do, and it can be done well. But I think if you look at the cases that it's done well in, it's a regional thing. On top of just like, guess what? All of those Chinese orgs across China have a fuck ton of money and a massive audience following their league. League of Legends is fucking huge over there. Those people are showing up. There are people who are diehard RNG fans. Guess what? They're showing up to RNG's fucking home arena. They're buying merch. Everyone's got their fucking Uzi bobblehead and their jersey ready to go. It's just difficult when all the orgs that are supporting these main state games are based out of LA. They can only really do shit in LA. So, me and you are both East Coast. The fuck are we supposed to do? I could love 100 Thieves. Yeah, I love 100 Thieves, I like Cloud9. What am I going to get out here to a fan experience for any of that shit?
Unless an event is being run out here already. Unless Worlds is like, we're going to Miami, baby.
Exactly. Or I spend the money and take the time to go to a League of Legends finals, which, like, if one comes to the East Coast, I'd be down. But it's like, am I gonna... This year, right, was a good example. That shit was held in LA. Like, what am I to do? What am I to do, you know?
When Worlds was in NA.
I still wish I went, bro.
Yeah. They ran qualifiers, in
South America.
They did the qualifiers in South America.
Play-ins were in South
Chicago,
America.
Right? They had like a playoff in Chicago or something? Madison Square Garden.
Well, that was a LCS final was in Madison Square Garden. Both I think were actually. You're right. There was an MSI or something. I think also. Madison Square Garden's been used a couple times, but the Worlds one, I think, there was a Chicago date, there was a New York one, and then the play-ins I believe were in Central America specifically.
Last year when TI came to the States. Again, I made sure I went.
Right, and you should.
$1,700. Booked it to Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Forced my girlfriend to watch 3 days of Dota live, and I had a great time.
No, I mean it's awesome. As someone who's like been to events, like they are cool. Well, I've been to like fighting game events, right, which is a little bit different, but like
still, LANs are fun to be.
Yeah,
like,
it's
there with
it's a good
for the same reason.
Yeah, it's a good environment. It's fun to see these things live and feel that crowd experience and that extra energy. But it's fucking expensive and it's fucking hard and like it's not getting any easier. And yeah, I don't know. That's really it. That's all I can say on everything.
As we geolocate like a 2-stage ballistic missile, we're crashing down to the other side of the globe.
Yeah, give me.
Worlds.
Yeah, let's.
Worlds
I guess let's knock out Worlds since we ended that on League. I don't know about you. I don't have a ton to say on the current state of things. I think most of it went kind of to chalk, as they say. TES over Damwon. I think if you were a betting man, you probably bet TES, and that was like a 2-0. HLE versus FlyQuest, I think you assumed HLE would win. FlyQuest taking a game was sick. Fucking
love to see it.
Nunu jungle.
That was crazy. That was an insane pick. As you know,
yeah,
I have a resident Nunu player in my server.
You have a Nunu terrorist in your server.
I have a Nunu terror. A lot of terrorists in my server.
Yeah.
Myself included.
Yeah.
But yes, I have a Nunu terrorist and he is excited.
So, and I mean, so to be fair, a lot of people obviously were like, Nunu, that's crazy. And as you should. That was like, I think the first time he'd been picked at Worlds since like 2012 or something. It was like a crazy stat.
It's like, he has a Taipei assassin skin.
Yeah, exactly. Like some shit like that. Inspired has been on the record. You can if you dig into the lore, if you dig into the records, Inspired has been on record for a while now saying he thinks the champion is broken. Like busted if like built correctly. And I think you saw a case for it there. That like in the right situation, that shit's fucking good. Because boy, did that game look hard to play for Hanwha. Like
running a jungle.
Well, you're getting ran down, and like let's say the snow. It felt like every time they had flash up, the dude just snowballs in, and you're forced to use it. Like it's just like you're not allowed to play the game with summoner spells because like he's just fucking running at you, and like you're forced to use them over and over again.
Eat all the damage.
Yeah,
because you're gonna do no damage, and any damage you do.
And like
is gonna get chomped back.
They built full ass support. That guy, that was a Nunu with a redemption and a locket. Like, you know, like he's just straight up running in and like you're trying to kill him and he's just shielding his entire team by hitting fucking active keys. Like shielding and healing his entire team. Like it's
pressing W and just rolling his face across the numbers.
Yeah. The second they charged in, his entire team's getting a shield. They're getting redemption immediately. And, like, he's fucking ulting, so you're slowed and about to take a chunk of damage, you know? Like, that was a full support-ass Nunu build, and it just worked. It ran the fucking team down. Yeah, that game was great. The first game, Bwipo got dog walked. The second game did not go great for him either, but it wasn't that bad. I take that back. I got it confused. The first game, he was Urgot like 1v5ing, and then he gets caught out in Gromp, and they fucking lose the game off it. I forgot that's how that game ended. Oh my god.
Evil.
Yeah, that was fucked up, dude. Because that was like, he gets caught in Gromp for like no reason. Like, why the fuck are you doing Gromp there? Dies. The whole team tries to jump in to bail him out, dies, and then they just insta win the game off a wave that they had there. Like, ugh.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking at the least.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, 2-1, fucking, it's like a classic fighting game meme where it's like, you report to the TO bench, what's the score? And you are like, 2-0, it was close though. It's just like, cool, scoreboard still shows 2-0, good job. Get out of here. Yeah. Close don't cut it when you're playing loser's bracket. G2 T1, obviously people were very excited. I was very excited for this game. Because historically, definitely a rivalry. G2 has been a team from the West that has contested T1 in the past. So they have history. I was excited for the rivalry, but also at the same time, with the way T1 has been playing, I was like, ooh boy, I think they're gonna get fucked, and they kind of did.
It's been a little rocky for them. I've been noticing
G2 got
slowing down,
fucking obliterated by T1, in my opinion. Like, those games, 2-0 to T1.
We'd love to see it, though.
It's
called G2 Daily.
If T1 keeps playing the way that they're doing, they're gonna win another Worlds. Like, I don't know what to say. Like,
let the man win till he can retire.
He still
That's
won't.
it.
Like, yeah, there was obviously going in, right? They almost did not make Worlds, period. They just kept having to mount like comeback after comeback. But they're here, and anytime they get here, they just lock the fuck in. And like, I don't know, they look disgusting. BLG versus PSG. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. PSG has done a great job so far. You got a rough draw.
Made it a lot farther than I was anticipating. I mean, I know she's a solid team.
No, they're strong. They have been a Korean killer in the past. And
the competition was looking stacked against them.
You're up against China's #1 seed. What are you gonna do? I don't. Yeah, like you lost. I guess we'll today, right? I guess we'll focus. Obviously, Fnatic went up against Weibo and put up a fight, but just could not take it home, and are eliminated, which I think, once again, you would probably, if you were a betting man, you'd probably assume Weibo wins that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have a lot to say about the Fnatic game, but I certainly do not.
I don't pay too much attention to Fnatic.
Rightfully so.
Nothing against the org. I like some of their teams. I like them in Counter-Strike, but
and then the TL game, which once again, I think we're supposed to win that. That being said, TL has looked not fantastic, and like, we're at a stage in the tournament where like there are no free games anymore. Like, you could say like GAM minor region, but like GAM and PSG, sure, they're minor region, but they have shown up and killed teams that are far above their weight many a times. They took fucking TL out at MSI, like literally, like GAM beat TL at MSI this year. So kind of the revenge match. TL wins it. I was happy to see it. came to play. The games were good. The game 1 definitely rough. The game 2, did you watch the games this morning?
I didn't watch this morning's game. No,
okay. So, Team Liquid, the game 2 is the start of game 2 is fire. They also, TL wins game 2 with, I think, what was the highest gold lead in like World's history. It was like 19K or something like that. The game starts horribly for GAM. So game 1, they did like a lane swap invade, in the sense that they invaded to place wards to try to catch TL lane swapping, right? Game 2, TL stack up in middle brush, Baron side, right? So top side, middle brush. Basically, to catch out if they go for the same invade again, because they're probably going to go for it again. Sure enough, they do. They see them go for it. They wait. Vi tries to cross through middle brush, gets instantly Rakan knocked up into fucking I think it was Nocturne Fear Tether, double kill. Right off the bat. You get double killed, minions haven't spawned yet. Gam gets double killed off of doing the same invade twice and getting caught for it. The game goes absolutely to shit for them after that. Like I said, this was a stomp. Game 2 was an absolute fucking stomp. They were getting rolled. Game finished at 24 or 22 minutes or something, and I think Team Liquid had a literal 18k gold lead by the end of the game. Not close. Game 3 starts a little bit rockier, or a little bit slower, I guess, but I actually think that game was pretty TL favored too. APA was kind of running the mid lane. Umti was running the jungle on Nocturne. Yeah, they made it out. They made it out, and I think the games that they won were pretty convincing. It's the question is, will it be enough to make it out of Swiss with this final stage of Swiss games coming tomorrow? So that brings me to, I think, maybe the most interesting part about Worlds right now is tomorrow's Swiss draws. DK Weibo, G2 BLG, FlyQuest TL.
Fucked up and evil they put the NA teams against each other.
Some people are happy about it because it means we're guaranteed quarters, which is technically true, right? It means an NA team will be in quarters. And you get to double grin and smile about it because there is a very real chance that G2 do not beat BLG, meaning Europe literally doesn't make quarters at all.
That's a
yeah, it is, right? And I will celebrate that. I agree with you, though. It's an anticlimactic way to get into quarters, in my opinion. Especially because we, as NA, did not get to fight EU a single time. Unless, literally, it's possible. If G2 loses tomorrow, if G2 loses tomorrow, we will have not faced Europe at all this Worlds. And I think that kind of sucks. I don't know.
Part of me hopes
that...
Well, they're playing BLG tomorrow.
Yeah, it's rough. They have to beat China's number one seed.
I'm hoping BLG loses.
I hope so too.
I feel like one of our teams, mostly FlyQuest, has a better chance at beating G2 than they would at beating BLG.
Yeah.
But
it's like I said, on one hand, it's nice that we get a free quarters. It's nice that we might be able to outperform them at Worlds again if they don't make it. But yeah, if I had to be honest, I would have preferred G2 to fight one of our teams and then have one of our other teams fight somebody else. And that way, let's say we get into quarter. Let's say we weren't
Liquid to BLG. BLG stomps Liquid because they've been underperforming anyways.
Yeah.
G2.
Imagine a world where it's FlyQuest plays G2 and TL plays Damwon or Weibo, and they both win. You know how fucking sick that is for the region?
Eagle Screech, I'm wearing the flag on my back. I'm showing up.
It's fucking massive. We get to beat G2's best team to make it into quarters, and we beat an Asian team on the other end to also make it into have two teams in quarters. And
a boy can dream.
Yeah, a guaranteed quarters is nice, but it just feels, I don't know. It definitely feels a little anticlimactic. But I don't know who's in this case. Yeah, I am rooting for G2. I hope G2 beats BLG. Do I think it's likely? Probably not. But
the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
It's true, 100%. West. The term West is an ever moving line. You know.
And somewhere around Turkey.
Right. But yeah, as the westernmost team gets defeated, it just keeps moving further west. You're always west of somewhere, is what I like to say. But yeah, I guess predictions are maybe a little. I think they're pretty clean in my mind. I think Weibo probably beats Damwon. BLG probably beats G2. I think FlyQuest probably beat TL, but I don't think it's a stomp. I think there's a pretty. You could convince me. If TL
You think it's a 2-1?
I think it's 100% a 2-1. I don't think FlyTL is a 2-0 at all. I think it's a 2-1. And I think in a world where TL can get out of their own heads with some of the way they've been playing, I think they have a good chance to win. That being said, I think both these teams know each other very well, and they are probably both pretty happy. Yeah, like I don't. Yeah, that one is a real coin toss. Right, exactly. And it's like, yes, Fly beat them in finals. To be fair, they were fucking handed that finals by a minion. Like, I said it when we talked about it before that if TL win that game, I think the momentum, I think they take the series, like, period. I think you go to that game 5 as FlyQuest and you fucking lose. Yeah. Yeah.
It would have been something different. But
so I by no means think this is a stomp. I think FlyQuest TL could go either way. I think G2 can beat BLG, but I think it's an uphill battle. And then DK, Weibo, I could see going either way. I want DK. I like Showmaker, so like I want DK to win, but like I feel like Showmaker really has to show up. And I think Tarzan is a really good jungler. I think, yeah. So it's tough. Yeah. That's my thoughts on the matchup for tomorrow.
Well, jumping into the present, or I guess the past now.
Yeah.
I'll drag it into the 2 live games we had going on as we started this recording.
Yes.
That have since ended.
Okay, nice.
And we have the results.
Okay.
So I'll start with Dota. And Tundra beats Na'Vi 2-1. It was nice to see Puppy back on Na'Vi for a tournament. It was a good time. Trying to just get a lay of the land for this upcoming season for Secret. It felt good. It felt good to have that back. And Loda being back on Alliance. Alliance having a Dota team again at we'll say a tier 1 event, an S tier event.
Feels correct, right?
It feels right. And
yeah, it feels correct.
There was a good bit during the tournament where Slacks pretended to be in a coma for 10 years. Like, he pretended he was like dressed up like a woman and was asleep for 10 years in a coma and was reawakened and was asking all these questions about Dota. And I forget the guy's name. He's one of the newer there was like a gap of me watching Dota, so some of the newer talents I don't recognize from that era, but
that is a good bit.
They were talking and he's like, yeah, lots changed, man. Like it's a different lay of the land. And Slacks is like, well, are Puppy and Loda still going at it? You know, Na'Vi Alliance El Clasico style? And it's like, yeah, that's the game right now, actually. It's like, oh, okay. That's fine.
That's pretty funny. That's a good way to tie that
breaking down the meta. He's like, is Alchemist like still really strong? And it's like, yeah, Alchemist is performing really well.
The more it's like the more things change, the more they stay the same kind of thing.
Yeah. And then he said something about like Thompson. He's like, I can't wait to see my goats, Miracle and Thompson playing. I was like, ooh, about that. It's like, put me to sleep, Doc. Put me back. I can't deal with this.
That's pretty funny.
It was a good bit. It was great.
That's pretty
Tundra beat Na'Vi. New Tundra because Thompson's not on anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they go on to play Heroic, which in the lower bracket, which is great in my opinion. Heroic being a LATAM team and historically LATAM being a strong region, but not particularly like stacked region, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like they've obviously made it to TI a bunch of times. They perform very well. They have a very big presence in the NA pub scene.
Sure.
We're not going to talk about that. People have different opinions on it. But Heroic being a LATAM team and taking a game off of Falcons, having a upper bracket run that was just insane. Again, beating Tundra.
Mm-hmm.
they were set up to make it to grand finals, and I still believe that they can. Because they beat Tundra already. They have to play Tundra again to make it into grand finals, and then they have the rematch with Falcons.
Right.
But it's just good to see them, and to see how the region will progress. Maybe this is the year for South American Dota, and TI 2025 will have a South American winner. Now it's super early. I'm being hyperbolic, but an early showing with a kind of showing an understanding of the meta post TI is good because it means that you have like the insight for it, and they're playing safe. They're picking a lot of Primal Beast and Muerta. They picked Muerta both games against Infinity. They picked Primal Beast both games. Shadow Demon, who's been played a lot at this tournament. Alchemist, who's been played a lot as well. And then they kind of switched up their draft a bit. They did have the Muerta. They returned to their guns in game 3, but they still lost. They had a Earth Spirit, which was fun to watch. I love watching Earth Spirit, but they didn't have a lot of their mainstay heroes that they were running earlier. So it seems like they tried something new against Falcons, and it just didn't work out for them. So they're probably just going to stick to their guns to beat Tundra. But again, Tundra has their number at this point. So it might be a little harder, but I believe they can pull through. And if they play it safer against Falcons this time, instead of shaking it up as much as they did their last game today, or yesterday, so no, it is today, then they have a good chance of beating them.
Let me ask, so is the meta, because you're more up to date, obviously, than I am on balance in Dota right now, has the meta changed a lot since TI? Like, has there been like a balance update or anything? Or is it mostly kind of the same meta it was at TI?
They had a little like balancing afterwards. I forget the number we're on, or the letter we're on now.
Okay.
Because they do their updates with like, I think it's like 7.34D, and then they'll have like mini patches that'll change the letter after it.
Right.
CD.
Yeah.
So minor changes.
Minor changes. Mostly the same, but yeah. Yes. The reason I ask is because I was listening to a stream. It was an NRG Apex stream. They were scrimming, but their coach Hod is a big Dota guy. He plays a lot of Dota, and he watches a lot of Dota. And he was saying that the TI meta, which like, as someone who basically watches Dota when TI rolls around and just kind of is like, ooh, lights, colors, fun. It's all Greek to me, and it's just a good time. But he was saying,
things you told me about TI was the way you explained Elder Titan's Stomp.
Oh yeah,
this guy has a blue like spirit guy that he summons, and he suplexes the ground.
That's like I said. We didn't know what was going on. We just saw this man lift from his body, fly across the screen, and then a bunch of people would get CC'd. It was sick.
Oh fuck! Wait, that was probably Earthshaker, not Elder Titan. Then
yeah, like I said,
probably Earthshaker.
Yeah,
jumps. Yeah. Anyways, continue.
He was saying that TI's meta and the current meta is pretty boring. Do you find the current meta boring?
I don't think in a meta where Alchemist is good is particularly fun.
Okay. Okay, true.
Alchemist, for the uninitiated, has a passive ability and is now an innate ability. So before you had to like level it, and I think you still do for the innate because they give it a cooldown. I don't know. When they change it to innates, it's weird. But he has Greevil's Greed, where every consecutive last hit you get exponentially increases the gold you get up to a cap of like times 4 or times 8 or something like that.
Sure.
So all Alchemist does is plays lane, goes into jungle, rinse and repeat for like 20 minutes, and then he comes out with 6 items, presses R, and runs you down.
Yeah, I can see.
It's not very fun.
I can see why that's not great. Yeah.
And it's whenever Alchemist is good.
To draw a parallel to League for that. This was years ago at this point. There was a Worlds meta where it was back when they were still trying to make Kleptomancy not stupid. It was a rune you would take where basically
ruined my life.
at the time it was a rune where basically when you landed spells you got gold. And the top lane meta, one of the greatest top laners in the game at that time was a Korean player named Nuguri. And everyone was like, dude, Nuguri's going to come to Worlds and do all this sick shit. He's going to fucking dive like 1v4 and like it's going to be a sick meta. Nuguri proceeded to play Vlad top with Kleptomancy and just hit Q on his opponent for gold until about 30 minutes, and then he would show up with fucking 5 items and win team fights.
Fucking like
And it was
walking into lane.
And like you said, it was dumb. It was miserable. Yeah. Nothing happened in top lane besides Vlad not dying and hitting Q for money.
Just Kleptomancy was bad.
Yeah,
Kleptomancy was bad.
problematic.
Cursor to first strike.
Problematic rune, to be sure. Kleptomancy.
But to give a little more insight on the current meta, the top 5 heroes are that like the contest rate and pick rate and everything here, according to spectral.gg for this tournament, were Storm Spirit at number 1 in 60 matches.
I like that character.
Fun character.
Yeah.
Very fun hero to play. And next time you ever find yourself playing Dota, do check him out. Timbersaw with a 65% contest rate in 74 matches.
Pretty high.
Alchemist at third with a 69. I don't know why he's in third with a higher rate than Timbersaw, but
interesting. Maybe he's like banned more or something.
It's win rate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Alchemist has a 50% win rate. Timbersaw has a 66% win rate.
True.
But it's less games. 5 less games. So,
the Cassante problem.
Just a little bit. Yeah. Alchemist has a 79 matches, 69.9% contest rate, and like I said before, a 50% win rate.
Okay.
In games that he was picked, in games that he was banned, 66.6%. So you can see when Alchemist is gone, a lot of teams that don't have to play against Alchemist are winning. Right? Like it's, and then 50% win rate out of almost 80 games is
crazy. It's almost like when you give Yone to a team with a Yone player, and you wonder why the champion's like 11-3 across Worlds right now.
Yeah, right. Morphling and Shadow Demon are the next two. Shadow Demon has a 93.8% contest rate with a 50% win rate out of 106 games.
Holy shit.
Shadow Demon is a problem, which also is very boring to watch. I personally love Shadow Demon.
Mm-hmm.
I think Shadow Demon is a really fun character. For those of you that don't watch or play Dota, the League equivalent, I would say, is Twitch.
Oh,
the Deadlock equivalent is Mirage.
Ew. Okay.
So Shadow Demon's whole gimmick is you have Shadow Poison. You stack Shadow Poison up to however many times you can get it on someone before the timer runs out. And you can detonate it to do, I believe it's pure damage still. It might be magical now, but as far as I remember, it's pure damage.
Is pure basically true damage? I would say, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
just making sure, yeah.
So then you have not a stun, but like a displacement. So you trap them in a bubble, and then illusions come out. Friendly illusions come out. So you can cast it on allies and enemies. Cast it on an enemy. You can hit them with the illusions. You cast on an ally. You can direct the illusions to hit other people, or you can give your teammate control of the illusions and settings. You also have a debuff that makes people just take more damage, slows them. He's got a whole lot of tools. And in a game where you're playing this slow with these very farm heavy heroes, like the timber saw. Timber saw, you're not fighting anybody until you get your first item, and even then, you're taking fights very sparingly.
Right.
Alchemist isn't fighting until he has at least a radiance, and even then, why would I just stop there when I can just fill my whole inventory and then walk out of jungle and fight people?
Right. It's basically what you're saying is essentially it's a meta where most people are incentivized to just not fight until, 20, 30 minutes into the game when they have
Yes.
items. And
You
then
get like a 1 or 2 item power spike, and then you team fight.
and correct me if I'm wrong, but typically, at least in league metas, when this kind of shit happens, is basically the problem with this it becomes a double issue because the team that wins the first team fight at 24 minutes essentially will now just kind of win the game over the next 15.
Because all you do is just go back to farming.
Yeah.
And you're already ahead.
Yeah.
And you're playing characters that keep that lead.
So yeah, it just creates kind of an uninteresting and mildly like uninteractive game.
Some parallels from TI though. Tusk is still very strong. Drinking Buddies is insane. Hoodwink is still a great support. Not as much playtime because you have characters that can get away from it, like the Morphling and the Storm Spirit. So it's not as... And the Shadow Demon can just dodge the Acorn or Bushwhack. So you're not getting as much playtime, but still pretty popular. Muerta is showing up as, I believe, a carry. I don't know if they're playing Muerta support still, but you're still getting those like Trace TI picks, but we've moved from the Death Ball, which is also very boring. You pick a lot of characters.
Yeah,
you go fast,
I mean, that's...
you fight.
Yeah.
If you win the first fight, you look for another fight, and if you lose that fight, you lose the game.
Yeah,
Coin Flip Dota and Farmville Dota are not very fun.
ARAM is only fun like once or twice and then kind of loses its luster. Yeah.
It is what it is. So that's Wallachia. We go into Falcons versus the winner of Tundra Heroic tomorrow. Sad Navi couldn't make it, but I'll use Navi as my transition for I Am Rio because they play Mouse tomorrow. Mouse has beat Furia in a devastating, and I say devastating because they're in Brazil.
Yeah.
I like Mouse. I also like Furia, but I also
Shout to the
like
home
Mouse
team.
a bit more here.
Yeah, shout to the home team for sure.
Shout out to the home team. Shout out Fallen. Follow Yuria. Great guys, great players, phenomenal performance. Made it to semis. Couldn't pull through. So rest in peace, Brazilian Counter-Strike. On the home court is devastating. But Mouse beats them not in 1 3-13, but in 2 3-13s. The exact same scoreline across 2 maps where Furia had a +3 at the highest first kill difference. Stats courtesy of HLTV.
Shout out. Doing God's work.
And you hate to see it. You hate to see going out both maps the same exact way. With having barely any improvement. Like, I think Yuri went, like, average on his rating. And everyone else was, like, couldn't even get to 1.0. Like, the next highest is a 0.87. And that's...
tragic.
It's tragic.
Yeah, tragic. It's what it is.
But, like I said last time, Mao's super young team, super talented team. Glad they made it, and I'm so excited for tomorrow. It's gonna be such a good match. You have previous major winners. Vitality does not make the Intel Grand Slam. I'm not a Vitality fan. I like Zywoo. That's about it.
True.
I'm so glad Mouse beat them. That is so good. That is so good. But yeah, it's gonna be a great match. JL, Alexa B, I am all those guys on Navi, great players. Mouse, great players. It is gonna be some crisp, some really talented Counter-Strike being played tomorrow. And if it
Oh
ends
yeah.
in a stomp, I am going to eat my words and be very disappointed. I want close games. I want overtimes. Map 1 at fucking IM Cologne, or no, ESL Pro League, we had the longest game of Counter-Strike ever played for CS2 at like 70 something rounds, like 72 rounds.
Mhm.
That game went on for over 2 hours, I think.
Holy shit.
And they had to take a 5-minute bathroom break between overtimes
God damn. Yeah,
because it went on so long. Like
that's ridiculous.
it was messed up, but it
Yeah.
was great. It was a great game. And it was only map 1. It was only map 1.
Holy.
So they had to play another game after that.
Listen, the barn burners are real. When
Yeah, no,
when
and it was
fucking
like 10 o'clock at night in Malta.
yeah, when ALGS playoffs split two, when the match final was at like game 10 or whatever, it's like that shit's you've been playing for 3 hours
You just want
straight.
somebody to
Like,
win at
yeah.
that point.
Well, shit.
Right.
Good to know. All right.
So Navi not making in Dota, but making in CS.
Hey, you gotta. We're getting it somewhere. They're getting it back in
Getting it
blood. You
somewhere.
know.
Yeah. Losing simple, devastating, but we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
CIS, keeping it regional. We transition to something you have very strong opinions on.
Yeah, I'm gonna save those for the end because I don't want a Debbie Downer. What
Yeah.
you're about to talk about. So you give me the report, like give me the man on the desk report, and
Yeah,
we're gonna go
coming
from
to you
into
live.
me being a crotchety grandpa for the second time on this show.
So coming at you live from the mean streets of the cursed apple,
Mhm.
we have Deadlock, 3 Deadlock tournaments, really 4, but one of them doesn't really matter.
Bro, and like we'll get into this soon. I out of curiosity, I looked over at my YouTube homepage that is on another monitor right now, and I see
Yes.
that Deathy is streaming Grit and Glory tournament right now for Deadlock. So it's one going on
tournaments?
as we speak.
We're doing it live.
Keep going, but no, that will make more sense when I talk about my point later. But please continue.
Yeah. So to add fuel to your fire here for a second, while we've introduced Deadlock, Deadlock has introduced ranked. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't see that. I haven't played in a little bit, so
yesterday,
yeah.
Yoshi put it on the Discord. Shout out Yoshi. That Deadlock ranked is now available, and you can play ranked at set times per your region.
Okay.
So they have like a earlier one and a later one.
Okay.
And yeah, they have ranked now. So
yes,
we're approaching a time where Deadlock is becoming more competitive, and we've been having these tournaments, community run tournaments. We had the Aurora Deadlock Masters.
Like a lot of them.
Yeah. So Aurora Deadlock Masters was one of the bigger ones.
Yeah.
Obviously a larger org behind it, funding it, 10K prize pool.
10K prize pool.
Pretty decent. 4 teams.
For sure.
The winners were Team Mikhail S. Finnish kid. He is crazy at the game. I watched the highlights of it. His movement is nuts.
There's a lot of people that are real gross in the game right now. 100%.
Yeah. He's insanely talented at Deadlock, and seeing how this will progress will be interesting, because obviously these beta games, you look at like Navi and their TI history, right? They were winners of the first one and then second place for the subsequent 2 afterwards, and then every other one they've been absent from the top 2.
Fnatic has a world championship, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we'll see how that goes out. Is it a fluke? Is it raw skill and it's going to translate into a full release of Deadlock? We'll see that. But he remains consistent through a few of these tournaments, because Deadlock Masters comes and goes. Mikhail S is very strong. he was on Team MKLS at the time. That's what they called it. We shift to Deadlock Core, where he plays on a team called Buff Enjoyers with a different roster. So the Deadlock Masters roster was MKLS, Piggy, Sharik, Listic, Heli, and Zergy. He has Piggy, Listic, Sharik, Zergy still on the team, and they've swapped Heli for Dimov, who is missing from the previous tournament. So new talent, believe he was at the previous. This one's at Core, the Deadlock Core tournament, season 2. Believe he's at the first one as well. And that one ended with some NA representation. They were also at Deadlock Masters. Hydration and Hawk wasn't there, but Hydration was there. So Hydration, NA Deadlock Prodigy, maybe, played for the Cabal, and they ended up taking the tournament over Buff Enjoyers. So Michaelis' team loses to NA Powerhouse, the Cabal, and we've got a good Europe versus NA rivalry brewing already. A tale as old as time itself, especially within esports.
To be fair, these kind of rivalries are important, I think, for early storytelling for this stuff. The only time I gave a shit about Valorant was when I believe it was Sentinels and oh fuck, I don't remember what the team they were beefing with was, but legit, like season 1 Valorant was like Sentinels and another team were the only 2 teams winning events, and they fucking hated each other. And it was like every time they would play, motherfuckers were shooting bodies, bagging bodies. Like they did not like
fined for teabagging.
It was real.
That was like a whole thing.
Yeah, I think that might have happened during that whole era as well. But yeah, they did not. And guess what? Only time I gave a shit about that game. Like was because that shit's raw and real. You give it like because those players were not like they were talking shit. Like it was real. So yeah, that beef, that raw real beef, can absolutely get you some viewers in the door.
So we've got that brewing. Hydration on a new team as well. The roster for the Cabal is not the same roster he was on with Team Sunset at Deadlock Masters. That involves Sunset together, Hydration, Lefa, Coolmat, 69, and Xeno. The Cabal is Lefa, Hydration, Sharky, not to be confused with Sharik.
Is that Apex?
Hawk.
Do you know if that's Apex Sharky? I know it's a random question, but
I will pull it up. There is no Wikipedia page for him. So
okay, then maybe it's not because I know like
and
Apex
there's no
Sharky
org next to it either. So unless they're a streamer, I'm not too familiar on.
No, yeah, Sharky, he's on Virtuous.
Okay.
He's an Australian player.
So,
yeah. So probably not the same Sharky. I was just curious. Yeah.
Yeah. Hawk, Sandwich, and Frill. So moving along.
Mm-hmm.
Both teams are absent from this one, but this is the most recent one. We have the Dead Air, shout out Dead Air, Cursed Apple Clash charity tournament.
Yeah, charity show match tournament, to be fair.
Yeah.
This is not, very different.
It's a fun time. This one's pretty removed from the hardcore esports.
I would say 100%. Like
because of that, and I feel like you think that's a bit more acceptable for a game this early.
Yep, we're gonna do it. Yes, I do.
Favorite talents.
Yes.
From other games like Sajam was there.
Yep.
Void played. Doki Bird.
Team's Doki Bird was
follower.
Team Doki Bird, which is was fronted by Doki Bird, VTuber extraordinaire. Was basically like she got some other VTubers and then like fucking a bunch of people from the Sajam Slam and Void. But yeah, Void. But no, exactly. Like you're talking about. You've got that team. You have Team Hollow Stars, which is wild. Hololive's male talent division, the Hollow Stars, they have a full team at this. So man, Hololive's come up twice in one of that's crazy. Think about that.
We'll get a Hololive counter at some point.
With
Every
me,
time it comes up, we'll pick it.
yeah, start knocking them up. Yeah.
Or a jar. It's like a swear jar for you.
Anytime I bring up VTubers, I have to put a coin in the jar.
Yeah. Put a Twitch bit in the jar.
But yes, no, exactly.
Frog follower, which was Gabe follower. If you know, you know. If you're on Twitter, you know. Ryoshu, I'm gonna butcher all these. CJ, Sapphire, Charger HM, and Roman
underscore memes. That's a good one.
That's a sick name. Secretly Roman Reigns.
Dude, that's that was. I'm glad you fucking said it, because in my head, like, I was like, the reason that's funny to me is because it's not like Roman as in, like, you know, the fucking empire. It's Roman Reigns memes. Like, that's what I thought in my head. Like, the big dog, dude. Oh my god.
For real. Yeah, so a bunch of other teams. You had like an all esports team.
Yeah.
Players on Orange.
To give an example of this.
A Laser, Lambo, Kilaris, and Rotterdam on the Benny Boys. Benny and Boys.
Yeah.
Who ended up taking the whole tournament.
Crazy.
Over Hikaru's team.
And that's Chess Hikaru, right? Am I correct?
I'm certain.
I'm assuming that's got to be Chess Hikaru. Okay, just to be clear, yeah.
There's a flag next to his name.
Yeah.
There is at least a Wikipedia page involving him. So yeah, it's got to be Chess Hikaru.
Yeah.
With a questionable name. But yeah, we've.
Yeah, you're right.
We've had
also,
Deadlock.
it's funny that you bring up the flag. I just want to say, because Team Hollow Stars, the fact that Gerard is the only person with a flag is extremely funny.
Philippines rise up, man.
Well, it's hilarious because, like, obviously we're talking about VTubers. There's like a layer of like anonymity there. No one needs to know like their real identities outside of like the Hololive character. But Gerard being Filipino is so part of his fucking brand that he had, like, it's just, we know, like, everybody knows. Like,
listen, man, at Deadlock Core, there was a Puerto Rican player, and audio listeners won't know, video listeners won't know. I have a green screen on. There's a gigantic, like, wall-sized Puerto Rican flag behind me.
Yes. There's 3 within your proximity from what you were telling me.
There's 3 in my room alone. There are 4 within, like, the width of my room and the room in front of me.
Yeah.
And now the one on screen, so there's 5. Listen, I'm about the culture.
It's pretty funny because, like I said, it is so him and the VTuber lore is coming out. What do you want? There have been at least 2 streams that I can name from the Hollow Stars boys, in particular 2 of the people that were on their team, being Gerard and Octavio, where they have been Deadlock streams where they exclusively speak Tagalog. Like,
they're building up the community now. The Dota community in the Philippines is huge. There's the Lakog Matatog moment.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Or I don't know if you're familiar, the casters were yelling about a Filipino team. I believe it was at TI. That's where you get the quote, Lakog Matatog.
I know the sound clip from watching TI. Like, that's how, ingrained in that game's culture.
I forget what it means. I think it's like, let's fucking go or something like that.
Yeah.
Followed by Normalin, because they're auto-attacking.
Yeah.
And then the caster goes, easiest money of my life.
Yep. Oh my god.
Love a good betting, man.
Yeah.
You can't bet here in Florida on esports, but
yeah.
That could be an episode all in itself.
That'd just be me being angry again for 20 minutes. Yes.
Listen, we have a Hard Rock episode written down somewhere. Whether it'll happen or not is if we run out of content.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if we've run out of things to talk about, I can be upset about Hard Rock Bet locking me out of betting on another fucking betting site. Yeah.
Kinsbid, here I come.
Yeah, so I've Moral of the story: I'm forced to just play case roulette, and that's how I bet my money. Yeah.
We're running face at points into the ground.
Yeah. But yeah, please continue on the debtor, unless you've spoken your piece
So
on the report.
I got a little bit more to
Go
yap
ahead.
about.
Yeah.
So Deadlock, with Ranked coming out now, with this new development that we had literally yesterday before recording,
Yep.
is barreling towards what I believe to be a full release. Now I'm gonna speculate a bit here, make my reporter predictions, but if we follow the trends of Dota 2 and its release cycle,
Right.
with Deadlock, which seems to be going a very similar way because Ice Frog has been working on it.
I didn't know that.
And
Actually. Nice.
yeah, he was moved off of the Dota team
Into Deadlock.
into Deadlock.
Wow.
In secret, which is why there was a really long time that we had a dip in quality within the, at least in my opinion,
That's
within the quality
hell
of
yeah.
Dota updates
Hell yeah.
for a long time.
Hell yeah.
For a long time.
That's sick. I love that shit.
And when Deadlock kind of
Like
finalized
stabilized.
in a way,
Yeah.
he went back onto Dota, and that's when we got some of these better.
So he was like
updates,
moved
facets
to
and stuff.
seemingly give Deadlock like a direction, like that kind of thing. And now
Yes,
that it
'cause he did all
has,
the balance.
now that it like has one, and like now that the team is like familiar with their product, they can run it on their own.
So I don't believe he was like the only one doing characters and stuff like that.
Sure,
Balancing
of course
game
not. You
designs and stuff,
usually
obviously,
a team like that.
but he was brought on because he was like solo balancing Dota for decades.
Yeah.
Like even back in All Stars, like they picked him up from All Stars after Pendragon left and took his stuff to Riot to make League.
Yeah.
And
There was a funny
MOBA history.
yeah, I was well. It's funny you bring it up because it's a interesting timing because there's a guy named Jason Schreier. I'm gonna make this very fast. A guy named Jason Schreier, who is a famous video game journalist, has a lot of inside scoops and stuff. He also has started writing books about like inside stories at like different game development studios. He just released a book called, I forget the name of the book, but it's about the history of Blizzard up to current, like a bunch of stories about Blizzard throughout their whole time. And he's been on a bunch of podcasts that I listened to recently to promote the book. But he was on the Easy Allies podcast and he was talking about Dota. Got brought up because obviously history of Blizzard, you have to talk about Dota.
Talk about Dota.
Yeah. And he was talking about the like insane poaching that was going on from Riot specifically, of just like fucking nab that Blizzard guy, nab that Blizzard guy, nab that Blizzard guy. There's apparently the Titan. So there was a, for people who don't know this, there was an MMO that was being developed at Blizzard for a long time called Titan. Ended up going nowhere. The bones of it kind of became Overwatch. For people that don't know the history on that.
And there was supposed to be a Overwatch MMO also.
Well,
like,
no, that was
launch.
there.
There was like rumors that people heard about Titan and then like they blended the two together.
It was more the other way around. There was an MMO called Titan that was supposed to be Overwatch's world setting, if you will, seemingly was kind of based around what Titan was. But the poaching was so insane from Riot at that point that at one point the Titan cinematics team, the entire team, they came into the work and that entire team had left to Riot.
That's crazy.
Yes.
That's actually insane.
Yes. It was crazy. The amount of people that got poached from Blizzard to work at Riot. Yeah, it was wild. Ice Frog, I think, was one of them, quite literally. Like, yeah.
Ice Frog went to Valve.
He, I believe, worked at Riot for a little bit.
He might have.
Yeah.
He might have.
And then he left to go to Valve. Yeah.
I do know that he's been like the Valve mainstay because I guess they approached him when they were doing Dota 2 and they were like, "Hey, we'll give you Valve money. Come make this game for us." And I don't know how much of the original like All Stars team happened? Because I know there was like a split. Like I know they did leave to make
Or,
Riot.
yeah, I was gonna say
I
because I
don't
know
know if iFrog was
Ginsu.
in that conversation, but like Ginsu and
I would
Pendragon.
say Gensu and Pendragon. I know both left. Maybe I'm confusing the Iceheart
Yeah,
stuff with something else, but
it might have
yeah,
been with Ginsu.
yeah, it might have been with Gensu. But yes, basically a lot of people got poached. Moral of the story. But yeah.
Yeah. Hence why Frog Follower
Hmm.
is the name of Gabe Follower's team,
Right.
because Ice Frog, Deadlock.
Of course.
Yeah. So now that the game has seemingly been put into a relatively stable state, artwork is being finalized, and balance patches are happening relatively frequently, we are
Almost
approaching
daily.
a release to the full game. Dota 2 was in a beta, a closed beta, for roughly 2 years before its full
Yeah.
announcement and release at Gamescom.
Yeah.
Or since the Gamescom previously, and then the year after they did TI on
I'll
like a broken beta build of that game.
Yeah, I will go on record as to say I don't think this game will be out until the end of next year at the soonest in like release date, and I doubt that.
Yeah.
I also think we are here for about 2 years. Like,
You're getting the maybe public announcement, because Dota 2 didn't like 1.0 until after the first international.
which is hilarious. Yeah.
That game was listen, Fountain Hook ruined that game. Navi cheese that win. I'll say it. I will say it within free to play, the documentary they made about it, they talk about how they abused an exploit to win that tournament.
Yeah.
They mentioned it briefly because
Yeah.
they didn't want to diminish the win, but they abused an exploit.
Happens. Especially when you're gonna play international competitions on beta builds.
Dendy on stream playing Deadlock was like, this game has Fountain Hook. Best game ever. That's what he's known for.
That's hilarious.
It's great. It was a good joke. Love Dendy. I guess they're sick. But yeah, so I do feel like we are, my opinion at least, I know it differs from yours a bit, that we are reaching a point where esports is very possible, a solid foundation for esports. Not yet. We're not going to get the big ESL, PGL,
Right.
perfect world contracts, anything like that, but looking back to Dota's history, because that's what I'm most familiar with, and that's how I feel like the Valve games kind of go.
Yeah.
You're gonna have your summits, you're gonna have your star ladders. Some of these bigger tournament organizers putting together like couple $1,000 events, invitationals, things like that. You'll see that more, and a bit more press. Maybe the Game Awards, they mention it. Like they announced Dota 2 at
The Game Awards,
Gamescom.
right? Or
It was at Gamescom in 2011.
Okay.
When they had TI, but I think they announced it the year prior.
because I think I remember that trailer like briefly, actually, like
Yeah,
in
they
my
had the
head.
shopkeeper.
Yeah.
And, like, what does a hero need?
Yeah.
So then they're like, sign up for the beta now on Steam. And so you'll have the request access button under Deadlock store page. And
Yeah.
from there, you'll be put into
The
a queue,
open,
granted
yeah,
access,
the
and-
like open beta
So we
format.
might get that.
Yeah.
And that'll open up the room for more esports focus and more building of an esports scene. And hopefully, not that I believe it will, but with all esports in their infancy, whether they want to be esports or not, competitive games, I'll say.
Yeah.
You look back at games like Battle Right, where the esports scene was there, it was possible, and the developers went all in too early and shot themselves in the foot because all their money went to esports instead of developing the game. I don't think Valve will do that. I don't believe that they are capable of doing
no,
that
because
they have a good track record.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're most of the fucking events are. I mean, you can look at like qualification for their
all
biggest
grassroots.
game. Yeah, they just let other people run the events. You know.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can open qualifier for TI. For the RMR in Counter-Strike, it's open qualifiers.
No, yeah, 100%.
Fucking One Pixels team.
Fuck, even
qualified.
Riot, who like now that League is a thing, their other games aren't like that. They're all open qual. Like
Yeah,
TFT,
Valorant.
TFT is an entirely open. All of the game, like leading up to the final event for TFT, which I think they also call like Worlds or whatever, international or some shit.
Yep.
It's all open qual, the whole thing. You know.
Valorant's not their top tier tournament, but their tier 2 events, the challengers
Yeah.
is all open. I mean, it's orgs. I think you pay for a slot
Yeah.
within
For
challenge,
the
but
VCT or whatever.
yeah, like you get bigger teams like Space Station and stuff like that, but maybe not teams that have tier 1 rosters like Sentinels and
Yeah.
all those guys that are performing.
But even they, I believe Valorant wasn't the season, like I don't think they established the league part of it, like the actual league, until maybe a year into that game. Am I crazy?
No, 1.0 for Valorant, like when it went gold or whatever you want to call it.
Had the league already established?
You had that first year, and then they announced the esports and everything after.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The VCT,
Right. Okay. That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Reinforcing.
No. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's all right. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't
And
crazy.
then they have the tier 2 events, the Challenger Series, that those teams, I think it's like 2 teams from that qualify for VCT.
Yes.
At the tier 1 level.
Right.
And that's how that goes. And then tier 3 and everything else, you have open and side events
Right.
that are run privately,
Yeah,
not through Riot.
of course. Yeah.
So, I'll let you take over now. Going to the esports section.
Yeah, so all right. Here's the thing, right? I want to say this as someone who really likes Deadlock. I think it's really fun. It's one of the most fun games I have played in a hot minute. It's a game I like a lot. It's a game I have. I'll pull the Steam up right now and give you the live check. I have 116 hours in it. I like the game. I like it a lot.
What am I at?
This
53.
and totally understand, like, there are a lot of people playing it. I think if you looked at the Steam
More
chart
people than when we
tracking,
started.
yeah, it's like 120K every day or more than I believe it's in like the 6 digits daily, right? Or at least it was at one point.
Yeah.
And like you said, more people are in than ever before. It's been basically, it's if you send somebody an invite, they get in. I've sent out multiple invites and like people get in. Like it doesn't, they're not really vetting that like hardcore. If you invite somebody, they're probably getting into the game. This all being said, obviously there are viewers there because people are streaming it now that all that, all the NDA shit got lifted. So people are watching it, people are playing it, people are making content on it, on the YouTube and shit like that. Here is my thought process, right? This all kind of extends less about the esport, because like let's say like something like you brought up, like the Cursed Apple Clash. I have no issues with that. That's totally fine. Obviously, there's viewers there. People are playing. People are enjoying the game. And the game has, like you said, a competitive foundation, right? Like there is high skill ceiling in this game, and you can see it. You can see it on display. You watch these like high MMR players and like this shit. Like there are people playing the game at a high level already. So yeah, you want to see those teams like fight each other, and I think when they do it in these like kind of Cursed Apple Clash type deals, these charity events and stuff like that, that's fine. Even if you want to have like these like quote unquote like the Deadlock Masters or whatever, or like I know Grit and Glory is like a series as well that like goes on, and like this kind of stuff, the Deadlock Cores, also like fine and dandy. My problem more extends to like the content side of the game, and by proxy, I guess a little bit of the like early foundational esports stuff of this game, where it's like you'll go on YouTube right now, and I guarantee if you just type Deadlock tier list, you're gonna get fucking 70,000 videos on somebody's Deadlock tier list on the best champions in the game, and brother, that information isn't half the time. It's not relevant for 72 hours. Like you said, this game gets bound. I haven't logged into Steam in 2 months without a Deadlock update. Literally every day. I
can go check right now. There's probably an update.
There's an update for the game almost daily. Are all of those sweeping balance changes? No. Sometimes they're balance changes. Sometimes they're bug fixes. Sometimes they're map changes. There's a million things. The content surrounding this game, most of the information, like I said, it's just not relevant past a fucking 72-hour life cycle. So, like, what are we doing, like, making this shit? unless you're
There was
talking,
a patch yesterday, by the way.
yeah, it's almost daily. Like I said, there are balance changes to this game, sometimes 4 to 5 times a week. Like, and granted, yes, exactly, there should be, because as we said, this game is in. I mean, I think they still refer to this as an alpha. Am I crazy? Have they started even calling it?
I think they say pre-alpha.
Okay, yeah,
When you launch the game,
right,
the
like,
pop-up says pre-alpha.
right, like
None of the artwork is final.
no,
they said.
yeah, that is 100% true. Yeah, none of the artwork is final. Like I said, I believe, yeah, exactly. We're in a pre-alpha, alpha, whatever nebulous kind of state there. This isn't even a beta yet. So obviously, of course, there's going to be updates, constant updates. There should be, because the whole point of them doing this pre-alpha is to try to tune balance, try things, see if they work. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And sometimes they fix it because it's just like, oh,
They're still adding items and features to the game.
literally. And they're reworking champion kits, like the Wraith I played when I got into this beta is not the Wraith that is live. Like literally, like they're changing stuff constantly, as they should be, because as we said, this game is in pre-alpha. It probably won't see the light of a day, like 1.0 light of day, for another 2 years. So obviously there has to be changes. My point is, when you exist in this environment, which the whole point of this environment is it's supposed to be experimental for them to test ideas and create test ideas, create balance changes, see what's working, see what's not working, see what's fun, see what's not fun. You need players from a data collection standpoint to be playing all of this stuff and trying different things out and doing things. When you've got motherfuckers making Deadlock tier list number 6, here are the best items, here are the best champions. Dude, I'll say it. Most of these motherfuckers watching that, they're just going to play S tier hero number 5. They don't even need to know what makes that. Half the time when people look at tier lists like that, they're ignoring all nuance. Like, I say this is like a fighting game player, because like this is rampant, where it's just like, so-and-so is the best character in the game, so I only play so-and-so. And they don't
from fighting game content. You make a tier list.
Yeah, and it's like, and you don't even half the people consuming that shit like are not even like, they're looking at the raw picture, right? Like they're not even watching the video. They don't even know why Akuma is the best character in the game, right? They see S tier, they go best character in the game. So, but they can't even tell you why the character is good, or like what makes them good, or the nuance of, is that character good at high level, or does that apply to low level? Shit like that. So it's like, I feel like when you're doing this thing where you're making these tier lists, these things, you are actively, there's a section of the player base that is actively just being funneled into playing the best thing in a pre-alpha game. You are like inherently muddying the water of data being collected for a better final product.
That's also why they shut down.
Right. This is exactly. Because there was I forget which site it was, very popular site, was collecting statistical data on win rates, items, things like that, and posting it. And Valve shut it down. And that site was very cool about it. They said, hey, totally fine. We get it. Like, there's no issue with that. They want to shut it down.
Why they did it.
We totally get why they're shutting it down. Because that is the exact shit that is going to kill them collecting meaningful data for their game. And
and especially in a space where like people want to be competitive, and that's fine.
Yeah.
It is a inherently competitive game.
Totally. You want to win.
You want to win, so you want to play what's good, but it removes the experimentation of finding out what's good.
Or literally even what is fun. Not just what is good, but it's like, is this play pattern healthy? We don't know, because no one's doing it.
Playing, nobody was really running Gun Ivy until a little bit after, and then Gun Ivy started to be really popular. Right. And that was when the NDA was still going on. Yeah. So like,
me and you both outside
of the Discord.
Yeah, me and you both played during when it was like actually super NDA, and you literally could not talk about it technically.
So on the Discord, people were like throwing ideas back and forth, and they were theory crafting. And one of those patches before they did their like soft launch of the pre-alpha,
which, to be fair, I think that was literally forced, because basically the public all kind of came together and acknowledged that it was kind of. Well, the thing was, someone
was posting videos about it on YouTube, and it got everywhere. Like the Score got their hands on it.
Well, it was that article that the one guy posted where he was like, "Hey," basically he was a journalist, kind of being like a sassy prick, but like he had a point where he was like, "There are 100,000 people playing this game daily. Why the fuck are we NDA'd?" And he posted his experience on it, and he got banned from the thing for doing it. And then he was like, "Oh, they banned me." And basically, it was a thing where it kind of made the public acknowledge, like, yeah, there are like 100,000 people playing this game every day. Why are we acting like it's a secret? And I think Valve was forced to be like, yeah, you're right. That's kind of stupid. Sure, do whatever.
But at the same time, this is why it was kept secret.
You're right.
Because, like, if you were in the game, you kind of understood what the point of it was, what the point of the pre-alpha was.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, we're building this as an esport first.
Right.
We are building
a game.
Flat out, we are building it, and it's been in development for a while. You can find countless videos
the
places like Dead Air that have that pre-alpha.
Right, the one where the aesthetic was cyberpunky, right? Like it was like a sci-fi game or whatever. Like
there's a video of placeholder blocks with antlions marching down the lane, and you are playing as Nick versus Coach from Left 4 Dead.
That's very funny, yeah.
And that was Deadlock.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say this game has been in development for a while, and like that is my main point. That is my main issue. Is I feel like when you're trying to form this like esports competitive culture around this game that is not even fucking out, and like so there's it harkens back to like, you know, I'm a big Lord Knight enjoyer. He's one of my favorite fighting game players of all time.
He's great.
Yeah, he's very famous, especially in the anime scene. Has played almost every anime fighter that has been popular in the last fucking 10 years at a high level. He's very good. He has a video, and this isn't even like I wouldn't say this is like, oh, this is a Lord Knight phrase. It's a phrase that I think gets thrown around a lot. But he has a video called "We really played this fighting game competitively for money," and it's talking about BlazBlue Calamity Trigger. No. I'm talking about Calamity Trigger. So like the first ever iteration of BlazBlue, and it's a 20-minute video talking about, because that game was bullshit. Like it was like
game.
Yeah, that game was bullshit. Like the balance was fucking absurd, dumbest, most degenerate shit happening all the time. And like BlazBlue didn't really get fucking stable until 3 iterations in, like during like Chrono Phantasma. Yeah, like it's, and even that, I still think there's some bullshit there, and like CPE, like Izanami, like all this other stuff. But yeah, Calamity Trigger in particular, we're talking like Gen 1 BlazBlue, that game was fucking nuts. And like that was his point, is like we played that game competitively for money, which is like ridiculous. Like by every metric is ridiculous. And like that's how I feel whenever we're talking about like 10K Deadlock tournament. I'm just like, yeah, we're playing this game for money. Like, you know, like we're playing the game where like fucking I like we had to nerf Hyper Beam fucking Bebop like 3 days in a row off of hot fixes because it was so like we're playing that game for money. Like
we're making minor patches because things are happening live and we need to test numbers live.
Yeah. I mean, quite literally,
a patch happens during the tournament, like every time.
So, did you play it was one of the bigger patches recently where they changed the mini map? Did you play that? I played that patch when it went live. We played one game.
The mini map that day.
Wait, not just that day, bro. I'm not kidding. I played one game. We had to leave game to update. The update was changing the mini map again. Because it was so shit, they switched it back within an hour. We're playing that game for money. And like I said, I'm not knocking that the game is changing, because yes, it has to. That's the whole point. We're in a pre-alpha. This game's not out. But like that's my thing, is I don't think these events should stop. I think they're fine. But I feel like we need to, like, we as like a community need to throw an asterisk on these events and be like, cool, I want to see high level gameplay. I'm still just going to do me, because like none of this shit is final and it does not matter. And the best player right now knows the game well and is playing well, and there is like a subtle fundamental foundation. But like
Yes.
to say that there can
You
be
understand the bare bones mechanics that
right,
were there.
like it's like the consistency in this game can't exist because these fucking like these champions are just being fucking reworked and retooled and changed over and over again. I was playing fucking I love Viscous. I love Viscous. The Viscous I was playing on release is, although her kit is the same, she has been nerfed in so many ways it's not even the same. Like Puddle Punch used to be the most
charges on abilities.
They have nerfed Puddle Punch literally like every update to her since release. They just keep nerfing Puddle Punch like over and over and over again. Granted, she was fucking busted for a while. It kind of needed it. But like that's my point. Fucking
the first Viscous patch came out like hours after the release.
Yeah.
Like they watched it for like a couple of hours, and then like maybe the next day at the latest, they put through a patch that nerfed Viscous like into the ground.
Yeah. No, it's
and it still wasn't enough.
Oh yeah, that character's still good in my opinion, still now. And like I said, they've done nothing but nerf Puddle Punch every chance they get. And like the character's still fucking good. Wraith, like I said, the Wraith I played on release is like Card is an entirely different ability, and Card is fucked up in like the current iteration of the game. Like, I'm shocked that yeah, I'm still shocked that ability is not like seeing more hits. But
any new Deadlock players that are listening right now, old Wraith Card, if you don't already know, it was probably covered in another video somewhere else. But if you don't already know, was a like randomly targeted ability that just happened around you when you hit the button.
It would just literally auto, like it added more attacks to whatever you were looking at.
Yeah, and then they had to kind of hotfix it so that it wouldn't prioritize creeps.
Yep.
And it would go towards heroes.
Yep. And it still felt
then they
bad.
Just decided to change it again.
Well,
the next patch.
Yeah, because the way as someone who played Old Wraith, it just felt like a bad ability. Like it was like you kind of had to shoot a bunch to get the stacks, and then you would hit the button, and then they would just kind of hit the thing. It just didn't feel very fun or active or good. Like it was not just like a fun ability to play with. So like, yeah, they reworked it to this new thing where you hit Q, you throw the card, you can guide the card by moving your mouse while it's in flight. So it's a much more active ability. Like you are actively involved in it. That being said, it has a fucking huge AoE on explosion, and you can literally like Tokyo drift the thing around corners. Like, yeah, it's like I said, the balance in that game is probably not great. And guess what? It's not going to be because the game is like 2 years from being out. So
Bebop being able to fly with his laser out is criminal.
There are all sorts of things that I think you could like look at and be like, this fucking shit is criminal. Mirage feels like the most worthless piece of shit champion in the game to me. Like yeah, that's my thing. That is just my thing with like competitive Deadlock is like it's just like I have to throw the asterisk on it every time where it's just like this game is like not even a game. Like, why are we taking the tier lists and the comps and the information being doled out to us so seriously about this? And
by full release, some of these characters are probably most definitely going to be completely different from their current state.
Right. And granted,
it happened in Dota and it'll happen here.
I'm going to trust Valve expertise on this. You know, I think it's fine, but at least to me, as an outsider, someone who's not there at the company knowing what's going on, when you tell me Deadlock has ranked, I roll my eyes and I go, why? What the fuck? Like what?
It's to separate the...
You're right. And that is...
hyper-competitive player base, the people that care about the tier list, from the people that are just playing.
My guess is exactly what you're talking about, is maybe they want two sets of data, and they're like, the more competitive-oriented players are going to go to the ranked mode so we can get what is like high-tier, like high-level gameplay data from ranked, and we can still get other data from unranked. And like, they just want two separate data sets. Totally fine. Which is like, that's probably what they're doing. That's what I would assume they're doing.
Which is also why it's on limited time.
Yeah.
Ranked mode isn't available all the time.
Right.
Like, if you want to play ranked, then the most competitive players would theoretically set the time aside to log on and play at that time.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think that's probably what they're trying to do is source like high level data. And that seems like a good idea, and it's fine and dandy. And once I thought about it, sure, I think that works and makes sense. But at face value, there's no way you can hear that and not just roll your eyes, in my opinion. Who gives a fuck? Like, the game's not out. Like, but yeah, that's it. That's me being crotchety about Deadlock. Oh,
everybody wants to be a professional, man.
I agree with you. Yeah, and I think you're right. And to transition this slightly into no, I'm gonna table this. We'll talk about this later. I was gonna say, because I feel like we're gonna go another 30 minutes if I go on this train. There is parallels to what I'm saying here to something like I've been playing Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, just came out. Very fun game. I enjoy it. It's a very fun brain off game. But it has sparked some discussion about like the competitive nature of like arena fighters and this kind of thing where, because like
the validity of traditional fighting games.
Yeah, and like
arena fighters.
Basically because there were a bunch of articles that came out that were like Sparking Zero is the greatest selling fighting game of all time. It has the highest player base. And like, I totally understand why you make those articles. I totally understand why you call it a fighting game. Yeah. But like when you get into the nuance and the weeds, it kind of becomes like, is that a fighting game? Like, what? And there is validity to that. Like, I don't think Sparking Zero is the same as Tekken or Street Fighter or Guilty Gear, nor should it be, but it also shouldn't be put on the same pedestal as those either. They're very different games. And like, there is something all right, we'll go into it, but I'm gonna keep it concise. I'm not gonna drag it out. So okay. The idea is, right, because someone asked Sajam on stream, and it was an interesting question, and I don't know if I have the answer to it, but I do think it's an interesting question to posit, where it's like, why aren't arena fighters considered competitive, and what would they need to be considered competitive? And it's like, I think in certain circles they are, right? If you look at like the
there's Ninja Storm tournaments every now and again.
Well, yeah, and to be fair, I think those are looked at. Obviously, the people that play them probably like them a lot, but I think generally they're looked at as more of a for fun thing. Until you get into instances of like Gundam Versus, specifically like Maxiboost and shit like that, which the nuance there is they are 2v2 games, and there is like an inherent synergy to the 2v2 like nature of them. And that makes them kind of interesting, and there's like gameplay that is developed there.
Pokken Tournament.
Right, and exactly. Pokken, I think, is easily the best example of it, and that game had the hybrid thing where it's an arena fighter that once you enter a certain... Like, once two people get close to each other, yeah, it becomes a 2D game. Yeah, it literally becomes like a 2D game. And that was cool, and there's cool stuff there. And I think there are ways that you could make arena fighters more competitive, but like I'm playing Sparking Zero, right? And I'm playing that game, and that game has a ranked mode, and they've done things there to try to make it more relevant. Because I think the biggest thing you see with these arena fighters, because let's be real, they're normally applied to anime games, like 9 out of 10 times. Your arena, yeah, exactly. Your anime of your choice becomes a fucking arena fighter, and like some of them are good, and most of them are terrible, and there's a whole other, like, broader gaming discussion to be had where I hate that shit because, like, I think you could make some fucking sick-ass anime games that are not, like... Imagine if they made a fucking Bleach game that was, like, a turn-based JRPG. I don't know. It'd just be sick. Like, that would be fucking cool. And, like, we just do...
Or tactics.
Right. Or, yeah, or that. But we don't get that shit because it has to be an arena fighter or a fucking Omega Force Dynasty Warriors game, you know? Like...
Because it's all about fighting in the animes, and it's just got to fight everything.
Or like Bleach, a good example. What if we had a Bleach that was not a fucking Omega Force, like Dynasty Warriors game, but a hack and slash, like a legitimate like Devil May Cry Bayonetta-esque hack and slash? Be fucking cool, like. But we don't get it because they have to fall into the box. So
if Guilty Gear 2 could exist, then I believe that we can have anime games that aren't
just an arena or a fucking Musou game. Fighters. Yeah. And it's like, so that aside, it's like they have done things in Sparking to try to make the ranked mode a little bit more competitive, where they've assigned, basically you can play it in a single battle format, which I don't even know much about that, but the mode that like attracted people's attention was the team mode, because you can have a team of up to 5 characters. But the way it works is it's a point system. So you have 15 points. Certain characters, based on where they are, have different point values. And the whole idea is that they assign the point values is because these characters are not balanced in like a way you would think, right? A Cyberman is not the fucking, just like in the show, the Cyberman is not the same power level as Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta. And they should not be balanced the same way. Those two should not be comparable if you're looking at things from a lore standpoint, which I think you kind of have to in these games with 180 fucking characters. The Cybermen should not be.
Half of them are versions of Goku.
I did a count. I'm not kidding you. There
are
like
24 different Gokus.
It's 19. It's 18. It's 18 exactly. If you count Goku Black, it goes up to 20. Yeah, no, it's.
If you want to rope in Bardock and all the other Goku.
Sure, yeah. If you want to talk about Bardock and Turles, like it's maybe we're at 22. Yeah. But so yeah, you give them a point value. Goku Vegeta is 10 points. The Cyberman is 2 points. Or actually it's 3 points. Because the funny thing you could do is if you did 5 Cybermen, that's a 15-point team. They've done some funny things with the numbers that I think are beneficial and fun.
I've seen like 1v5 Chaozu every now and again. That one's like my favorite.
The Ginyu Force, if you get every member of the Ginyu Force, it adds up to exactly 15. Like they knew what they were doing, right? Like you can play the Ginyu Force in ranked and it's an exact 15-point team. And like, yeah, so it's like if you want to play these fucking high power level characters, they're 10 points. So now you either play like a 10 and a 5 and play a 2-man team, or you play a 10, a 3, and a 2, whatever. There's like a ratio system. You have to budget these teams for like a ranked mode. And I think that's a way you can make this stuff more competitive. But it's also like, it's about applying this competitive mindset to games that just don't inherently need it. And like, it's like, that's not who that game's trying to grab. Like that game's not trying to grab tournament players. And it shouldn't be held to that standard. And like, the tournament game should not be held to its standard, right? Of course this game is going to sell fucking 11 million copies and it's going to sell more than Tekken. All I do when I play it is I hit square and see the Dragon Ball characters hit each other. Like,
and it's big and flashy.
Yeah, like it's totally different.
It's a game designed for making gentleman bets with your friends.
Yeah, exactly.
And not so much Evo Champions.
No, yeah, I don't need to see this game at Combo Breaker.
But
I think it's fun to in like in a novelty kind of way, because like granted, is Deadlock sparking zero? No, because I think eventually this game will, on its release, have a competitive be actually real.
There is competitive validity to the game already.
Yeah, and they are
set up in a way to allow for
right. They are going out of their way to make sure this game is competitive. Like it is balanced around eventually being competitive. But right now, it's not. And I just think we need to note that and understand that and add that to a part of our brain whenever we look at competitive gameplay for this game. Just don't put the cart in, like you said. I think, you talked about Battle Right and this idea of like they crashed their game because they put the esports cart before the game horse. And I think not that Valve is going to do that, but I think the player base needs to fucking keep in mind that we need a good game before we can have a good comp game. And like,
right.
That's
definitely the case.
Don't let the competitive mindset of being competitive in Deadlock right now interfere with having a good Deadlock release game. And that's really it. That's my piece on it.
No, you're definitely right about that. I feel like the game is it's going to go in a good direction regardless.
Oh yeah, I have full faith.
And everybody else on the team has good head on their shoulders.
Yeah.
On how the game goes. They have the experience from their biggest esport. I mean, I pulled up the prize pools while we were talking about them earlier. At its peak, a $40 million.
Yeah, the biggest. I think. Whoa, it was the biggest like single tournament prize pool. Yeah, ever of all time. Like.
We're on a bell curve. It went from 1 to 2 million for the first 3 internationals, jumped to 10, 18, 20, 24, 25, 34, 40 million.
Right.
for the next ones, and then now we're going downhill 18, 3, and 2 million for the most
See,
recent
I will say this. I was shocked when I saw that this was now, and I didn't even realize it at the time, but now the second tournament that was below 10 million for TI. That shocked me. The fact that it was not a
Yeah.
double-digit prize pool genuinely caught me by surprise.
It's rough.
Economic headwinds, as they say.
It is what, dude. If you're selling fucking like $700-800 tickets to the event, and then you have to then pay for lodging and the flights and the stuff at the events. This TI didn't have free stuff this year, apparently. Every year before, you got a free swag bag.
That's true. Yeah. I remember the
This
Shanghai one had the
Yep.
codes for the skin and shit, right?
Yep. If you get they used to be attached to your ticket. You would get crimson versions of Immortals, and then those are worth like hundreds of
Hundreds of
dollars on the
dollars,
Steam
yeah.
market. So they were giving you free money, like
Literally.
you got paid to go to TI,
Yeah.
and they were drops from watching games. So if you linked your account, you would just get items.
Yep.
Nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. That's
It's looking good for Deadlock.
no, yeah. I like the
and
game.
as
I
a
don't want
game,
any. Obviously, I don't think
but-
I've said anything necessarily negative about the game. It's
No,
more so
not
about
at
like
all.
the mindset.
Yes.
Yeah, I totally love the game, and I think the game probably will have barring any weirdness, I expect it to definitely have like a solid launch. And I'm curious to see how far it goes in terms of like player base and like prestige and stuff, and like the esport as a
How
whole.
orgs
Yeah.
are,
Are
like,
people going to
set
be
up.
invested? Yeah, right out of the gate. Like, what's the look like? Like what does that all look like?
I remember when Overwatch, my last point, and then we'll wrap this up. I remember when Overwatch was like first releasing and the competitive scene was building. Orgs were picking up teams, and you have to build a 6-man team
Yeah.
from scratch.
Yeah. 6-man
From
team.
nothing.
That's yeah.
I mean,
Well, because that's the thing is like you're as an
it's sure
org.
it's one more person, but that's a lot of players now. Like if you're an established org like Liquid, like Evil Geniuses, like Fnatic, you have 5 people on a League team, 5 people on a Dota team, 5 people on a CS team. You're now adding 6 people for a Deadlock team.
No, yeah. I mean, that's the thing is like obviously I don't think you can expect orgs like the Liquids and Cloud9s of the world to really. They're not going to be here until they're not going to be here at all until release, right? I would think it's fucking insane if you are a tier 1 org and you're trying to get a Deadlock team right now.
Esports as a
You're
business
you're throwing money
operates
into
at a
a
loss.
fire. Yeah, like
Yeah.
So
Like as is, all these orgs
Yeah.
operate at losses.
Oh, yeah.
They get their money from sponsorships, from like winnings of tournaments,
Yeah.
and that's why a lot of these tier 1. That's why you don't see that many tier 1 orgs.
yeah.
That's why you see the same tier 1 orgs at every event.
Yep.
Because they need to be consistent to keep winning to support themselves.
And like
to
they,
support their business.
like I said, most of them do not have established revenue chains outside of winning. Some do. I think, like obviously there are ones that have done a good job. Team Liquid has obviously, as of
100 Thieves.
yeah, 100 Thieves hoodie org, hoodie org in parentheses derogatory.
With content for the longest time.
Yeah, FaZe has that. And then Cloud9 and Team Liquid have built like enough of a name to be like merch stores. Fucking Team Liquid has managed to establish like every collaboration in the world to sell merch, and it does very well for them. I mean everything down from the Avengers and Marvel to fucking I almost bought. They had a keycap set with fucking Illidan from World of Warcraft. I almost bought it. Like, it was sick. Yeah, it was. Yeah, they got them all over the place, and that was. And what do you know? What they dropped that Illidan keycap set for in collaboration with? When Team Liquid was running Race to World first, like they know what they're doing. Like, it's. But you're right. Most of these places operate at a loss. 90% of them don't have a good revenue stream outside of winning games in order to get sponsors. And currently, I mean, economics of the world, there aren't a lot of sponsors to go around. Not a lot of people willing to give you a bunch of money if they can't see a return immediately. Like, so yeah, no one's going to be booking a Deadlock team while it's fucking in alpha. And I guarantee you won't see them picking up a Deadlock team for the first 6 months of this game, because the whole idea is they're going to want to see who looks good, or what random ragtag groups of people are winning tournaments in these opens, and that's when you start the Overwatch process that you're talking about, where it's like, oh, this team won like 3 opens in a world. Yeah, buy them. They're Fnatic now. Oh yeah, this team won 3 opens in North America. Buy them. They're Liquid now. Like that's how you do this stuff.
On top of all that, you buy the roster, you perform with them for a year, and then you shuffle.
Yeah, exactly. And
maybe even 6 months, and you're shuffling.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, all right, well, this guy, fuck it, we can get somebody better here, whatever. Like, exactly.
And then, and so it's super inconsistent up until maybe like the first year or two of that game.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%.
But with that,
I watched Hiko rotate across 3 different fucking Valorant rosters in like the first year and a half of that game being out. Like, but yeah, that being said, let's wrap it up.
That being said, we look forward to it. We look forward to the future of esports as a whole. A bunch of new games coming out on top of Deadlock. We've got Shroud's game, Spectre Divide, Fragpunk just had another closed beta.
Like I said, I
might talk about that next time.
Yeah, I'm curious about how those go. Yeah.
There have been bigger games in the past that have failed miserably. Rest in peace, MXM and Battle Right, but
I just think it's so, at least in the first person shooter space, it's so difficult. It's so difficult. Like, as much as I would like
competing with COD and CS.
Much as like I would,
and even
I've heard good things about Fragpunk, and then obviously the other one that you said, Spectre Divide. But it's just like, yeah, dude, that's such a fucking market, man. Like, you're gonna pull Apex players away, you're gonna pull COD players away, you're gonna pull like, I just don't know. Hot topics, hotter keys. We'll see you around. Oh, my camera will let me phase up. Fuck.